Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, and we are live. We're going to be talking about Geno Smith today. I want to get into the latest news and rumors around the Raiders. We're going to be looking at some mock drafts. I'm going to tell you my top players that I want Pete Carroll and John Spytek to draft at pick number 6. And then a little bit later on today, we're also going to be doing some March Madness games. Today is the official start of the Raiders Report March Madness bracket. We will reveal who are all the 64 teams and where they rank. We have Las Vegas, Los Angeles, we have Oakland and Brockton regions, 64 teams. One person's going to be cutting down the nets and go home with $1,600. So we will first do some of the segments around the Raiders meeting with a linebacker yesterday. And in my mind, again, if they're meeting with a linebacker, that tells me that they're still looking at that position. So I wanted to be able to break down some of the free agent targets. Then I have them ranked, my top players that I would target at pick number 6. Lots, and I mean lots of Ashton Jeanty rumors to uncover, and then we will get into the 8 March Madness games today. My question is, I want to ask this because I don't know if I've asked this one yet, and I've asked a lot of different versions of this question regarding Geno Smith. Also, if you haven't voted yet at the live poll, is Geno Smith the top 16 QB? Please go ahead and do so. But let's say that y'all were running Madden, and Geno Smith right now on the Las Vegas Raiders, what would his overall rating be? Is it in the 90s? Is it in the 80s? Is it in the 70s? Hell, I've seen on social media, some of y'all probably think that it's in the 60s. I'm going to give some shout-outs here on the show, and if you're new to the Raiders Report, we are an interactive YouTube channel, and this is kind of how we get down. I see Charles Anderson, Scott Smith going to go with an 82. Jeff Rogers says 85. Nick's going to go with an 80. 76 from Corey Simmons. G-Money is an 85. What up, Rebels? Going to go with an 88. Raider 82. Jeff Rogers 85. I would say right now that we got a pretty common consensus.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the middle 80s. You play a little bit more Madden than I do.
So
what do you think your number would be?
So I was actually gonna say what they actually have him rated on Madden right now.
Oh, okay.
So from the end of this year, any guess for you on where Madden has Geno Smith rated?
83.
Close.
That would have been the number I would have went with.
The end of this year, Madden 25 had Geno's rating at a 79 overall.
Okay. Which, I think at the end of the year, I don't mind that all that much. Like, to me, if you have a 79 version of Geno Smith, you give him a better offensive line, which is going to help him. You're going to give him, hopefully, a better running game, which is going to help him. And on top of that, Chip Kelly's the best offensive coordinator that Geno Smith has ever had. So, I mean, if you can get him somewhere at like an 82, 83, I think that that's kind of the realistic expectation that the Raiders fans, that the nation should have ultimately for Geno Smith. As always, if you want to get your questions, or in this case, a comment up on the show, it's hashtag Raiders or Super Chat. Let's give a shout out to my man, Suavemente, which, Suave, I don't know why your Super Chat looks like this, but it's a dirty joke. Y'all can read it. Saliva. Let's just say this. I'm not spitting in my hands anywhere near Noah Suavemente. Let's go to Will Duncan. Noah, we were reading it before the show went live, and I read it out loud, and my boss is like, yeah, I don't know if you should read that out loud. Every time Pete Carroll has taken over a team, he drafted a cornerback with his first rounder. Defense feels like a trade back to 10 to 12 range. Get more draft capital could be a solid plan. I feel like every single year I do this show, I always sit up here and I go, if I was the Raiders, I would trade back. And I can't even believe that I'm saying it yet again because I agree with you, Will. If I was the Raiders, I would figure out a way to trade back because to me, a lot of the players that I could see the silver and black taking at number 6 overall, I think they could also get in the 10 to 12 type of range. That way you also are able to try to get back an extra third-round pick. And I said this in my mock draft that I dropped earlier today. When I look at talent in this year's draft, and quite frankly, this offseason, when you look at the talent from a draft and from a free agency standpoint, this has probably got to be one of the worst talent polls that the NFL has pulled from, again, on the open market and free agency, and then the players that you're looking at in the draft. But when you get to that 100, 110 like top prospects list, I think that there is a massive drop-off. And if you're the Raiders, I would try to add multiple picks to try to get a few extra before that top 100. And quite frankly, it wouldn't shock me if there are a bunch of teams out there that try to trade up early into that top 100 to use some of those, because I'm telling y'all, the depth quickly dwindles. And I have noticed that in a lot of mock drafts that I've done. Will Dunk, we're on the same page. What up, John? Mitch, I loved your recent mock draft, but I would have moved back at least 2 to 3 times. And I don't disagree with you, John. Sometimes one of my biggest fears when I do a mock draft is the more and more I change it, the more and more less likely it's going to happen. So a lot of times when I do a trade back, I usually only try to do a trade at least once. I will do multiple mocks where I'll do a lot of different trades out there, but I don't disagree with you. There was multiple opportunities for me not only to trade back, but also to try to trade up. And if I was the Raiders, I could see them trying to trade back in round 1 and then using some of those picks that they're able to accumulate to potentially move up and go get somebody. I know they like Tetairoa McMillan, but I also know that they love Emeka Buka. Could you potentially trade back in round 1, get somebody like a Jahdae Barron, maybe a Will Johnson, who knows, maybe an Armin Membow, maybe a Will Campbell still there. And then could you use that pick to try to trade back up into the end of round 1 to go get an Emeka Buka, right? I am worried about the wide receiver talent in this year's class with the wide receiver room that we have right now. I like Jakobi Meyers. I believe in Brock Bowers, right? Those are the 2 players that we believe in. Outside of that, though, the wide receiver room for the Raiders is very, very thin. Now, not only are we going to be talking about Raiders today on the show, but I also got to know, when I say who's going to win March Madness, let's be real. I mean, who's going to win, the actual March Madness? Whether you think it's Duke, whether you think it's Houston.
I thought we were talking about the Raiders March Madness.
I mean, hey, if you want to get your votes in for the Raiders March Madness as well, I'm not going to hate on it for it.
Is there anybody, type me in the chat if you are in, if you know you're in our Raiders March Madness bracket.
It's going to be electric.
Because we're about to
I just didn't know how many people knew who was in.
We're about to roll through all of the people in the bracket so you can see where your name is, see who you're matching up with. Round 1, the round of 64.
K-Rock's in, Gilbert Moreno's in, RJ Cole Raiders in, Rebel is in.
Raider
if
Sancho.
You're like, Mitch, how do I get in? Unfortunately, there's no more open spots for March Madness. The way that we did this was a $50 Venmo. Winner's going to go home with $1,600. And I'm telling you this, we're going to do some races today. We're going to do some races on Thursday. And if any breaking news does end up happening, we will try to get a few more done. The objective is this, though, to have the final race be on the exact same day, the final day, as the actual national championship game. We'll try to get as close as humanly possible to that. So you ready?
I'm ready.
Are y'all ready? So here's what we're going to do. We are going to roll through all 4 regions here in our Raiders Report March Madness bracket. Let's first start with the Las Vegas region. Brandon Jasper, the number 1 seed overall, will be taking on Brent Wilson, a.k.a. Annette. Then in the 8 and 9 matchup, Stephen Corbell, Tyler Dooling. At 5 and 12, you got Philip Bogert going up against Rafael Murillo. At the 4 and 13, Nathan Wolf, Luis Estella. Then let's look at the bottom version of this. Ray Aguirre is going to be going up against Roger Braun. Rebel Montana up against Richard Kelly. Jason Gutierrez against Patrick Roche. And then Yoda Jenkins, who was a 10 seed last season, is now a 2 seed. I should also say this. If anybody sees a Raiders photo next to their picture and you want an updated photo, you can always just tell us, and I will do my best to get you an updated photo. I just put Raiders photos when I didn't have any. Patrick B., which actually I could probably get Patrick B. an updated one. Troy Maldonado, Jason Garcia, Norman Hernandez in that 8-9 spot in the Los Angeles region. Matt Fluhey is going to be going up against Chris Aguilar, 5-12. Noah Suavemente, Ian Perez at 4 and 13. At 6 and 11, you got Finesse Lounge, Anthony D'Angelo, LA Crash Dog. Somebody tell him that he's a 3 seed because he's going to ask later. Misty Williamson, Tony Knutson at 7 and 10. Really like that matchup. And then Ryan Campbell up against Scott and Renee. Really good 2-15. Let's now go to the Oakland region. You got Raider Ron up against Roberto Serrato at 8-9. You got Randall Carter against Johnny B. Good. 5-12. Rustin Long against Gilbert Moreno. 4-13. Blaine Craig. Trent Hamada. The bottom version. David Vergara, Austin Gomez. Jamari Murray at number 3 up against Rupert Daniel. David Rubio, Buck Kurt. That's going to be a fun one. Husker Raider, Justin Salazar. Let's now go to the final region here, the Brockton region. If you don't know why it's Brockton, that is the birthplace of Al Davis. Lord Cameron Abbott up against Bridget Rivera. Joe Maldonado up against Adrian Leon. Darth Fadass, Marcus Am. Anthony Green against Richard Magbull. And then here's the final. Raider Sancho up against Raymond Sanchez. Ronald Raspberry up against Amanda Frazier. Mo Shub up against Eric Mitchell. 93 Nabman up against Azar Saul. Here's the bottom line. We're going to do duck races. We're going to do dog races. If you've ever watched any ways that we usually do those type of races, it's exactly how we are going to do it for this March Madness bracket. It is also an important reminder. It is also an important reminder to let everybody know that it is 100% random, okay? We have no control over how the races go, and I know a lot of the OG watchers know that, but I just wanted to be able to let y'all know just so in advance we don't get anything. I mean, here's the crazy part. Last year, David Zahn, the number 1 overall seed, ended up winning, and he took down, I believe it was a 10 seed, Jose Corona, both of which are not in this year's March Madness bracket. K-Rock says, can you change Scott and Renee to K-Rock, please? Scott and Renee was one of the longer ones. I think it was actually a 15 or a 16 seed. We'll have to write it down. But K-Rock, I got you, man. I got you. We will make note of it. We will do our best to make the changes. I will say some of the graphic changes aren't as easy as what we typically are able to do here on the Raiders Report. It's a brand new graphic package, if you will. So here we go, man. Who you guys got? Who's going to win March Madness? If you want to let me know down below. If you want to say the Raiders Report, cool. If you want to go with the actual March Madness bracket, I'll give some shout-outs here because somebody said, Dan78, no. Anthony Green, use my YouTube pick. I got you. If you guys want me to use your picks, I will do my best. What I realized last year is we had a few pictures that were saved, and then because either y'all changed up your pictures or we changed them, some of them didn't pull as easily as what I was looking for. I see it, Duke from Ed Robbins, Kentucky. From Raider Jake 69, Seth is going to go with Arizona. Dan 78 says UCLA. Is UCLA even in it? I mean, I know they're in it for the women's.
They are.
For the men's?
Yeah.
UCLA, I don't even remember seeing them. K-Rock's going to go with Brandon Jasper.
I want to say
or Cameron Abbott spamming
I want to say
LCA.
UCLA is a 10 seed.
Are they? I don't even remember. What's sad is I was so excited for the bracket, and then today we were going around the Chat Sports Studios. It was like, what's your first round upset? Legitimately didn't know. I had to look up the bracket.
Well, I mean, yeah, you haven't watched any college basketball.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. I watched a little bit over the weekend. Let's go to Drew. What up, Drew? Chuggs at Orlando Airport just met Booker T.
Oh, Booker T, Houston legend.
Wrestling.
From Houston.
That is actually one of the few wrestling people that I do know.
Dude.
Booker T.
So he's an announcer at WWE now, and there's this women's wrestler who her move is her opponent's on the ground.
Yep.
She puts her knees around their head, and then she puts her butt up in the air, and then she slams their head on the ground. And Booker T, whenever she does it, he goes, oh.
I'll tell you this right now.
Can you dig it, sucker?
I don't think it's the worst move that could happen to you, quite frankly. I think if there's a single WWE move that I would want to be pulled on me, it's probably that one.
It's all around TikTok because Booker T low-key is being kind of a horn dog with it. He's like, oh, yeah.
I mean, how can you not be a horn dog with it? If somebody straddles your head, grabs your head with their legs from what it sounds like, and then tries to slam basically what? Her gooch area on your face.
No, your face onto the ground.
Oh, okay.
But her butt is up in the air, and she's basically
twerking on it.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, all right. So I didn't realize the face was down. I was thinking face was up. She clenches and then slams the back of your head.
If you want to look it up, they said it in the chat. Stephanie Vaquer.
I don't know if I should look that up. I'm worried about some of the ads that I would get because of it.
No. It's a wrestler. Just look up Stephanie Vaquer.
Who?
Stephanie
Stephanie.
And then last name with a V-A-Q-U-E-R.
All right, I got it. I'll tell you what, she's scary looking, and she's got horns. Yeah, I'll be real. I would not want to get body slammed by her. Actually. I don't know. She's got horns on her head. Interesting. All right, we're going to keep it moving here before I get kicked off YouTube. Harry, what's up, dude? Spit shake, LOL. You know, sometimes you got to dap each other up, though. I'm not going to dap up Noah Santana maybe ever again.
In our little script, it says that we're going to do 2 races to start off.
I think I'm kind of down to do 2 races. I wanted to show people what exactly it looked like. So here's essentially how today's show is going to go. I got 3 segments for you. We're going to do 2 races, then a segment. 2 races, then a segment. 2 races, then a segment. 2 races.
All right, so I'm guessing
that's how that's going to go.
Are we going to start with the Las Vegas region?
I think we got to start with the Las Vegas region. So the first race that we are going to do today is going to be Brandon Jasper up against Brent Wilson, a.k.a. Annette. And then the next race we are going to do is going to be Stephen Corbell up against Tyler Dooling.
And I will say this
30 seconds, by the way.
I'm going to do them all the dog races.
Yep.
Because, one, that's fair. They're all going to be the same race.
Yep.
They're going to be 30 seconds long.
Yep.
And I think the dog races are just more randomized. The duck races, I feel like you can tell who's going to win.
Mm-hmm. So every race that we're going to do is going to be 30 seconds long, and every single race is going to be the dogs. So last year, I don't remember if we switched it up. I think last year we did duck every time.
I think we changed it up for some of them.
Did we? Unless they asked. Okay.
And we did. And I don't think we loved that.
Yeah. All right, so here's what we're going to do. The dog race, once Chuggs gets it all set up, here's what I got to know. And to Brett Wilson, a.k.a. Annette, no disrespect to you, but I try to do this in a lot of different ways of just who, gets in duck races, names that I've seen before. You're going to be the one that probably people don't necessarily root for, but that doesn't mean that you cannot win. So best of luck to Brent Wilson and best of luck to the GOAT, Brandon Jasper. You ready?
I'm ready.
Winner is going to advance to the round of 32 for a chance to win $1,600. 3, 2, 1, let's go. I don't know how this one's going to go. I mean, we've seen a lot of dog races, Chuggs, that have been like with obviously larger groups. I've never seen it 1v1. Right now, Brandon Jasper is slightly up at halftime, but only by a little. Is Brent Wilson going to have the upset of a century? Is the number 16 seed going to win? It looks like Brent is. I think Brent's going to win. Brent Wilson with the win. The 16 seed advances. Brandon Jasper. I'll tell you what, Brandon's screaming at me right now from above. Though, I do find it kind of wild. Last year, David Zahn was the number 1 overall seed, and won all 7 races, has never won a duck race ever since. So Brandon, unfortunately, falls, which means number 16 seed Brent Wilson, a.k.a. Annette, is advancing to the next round, which means they will end up playing even Stephen Corbell or Tyler Dooling. After this race, we will get into the very first segment coming up here on today's show. Overall, though, this is what we're going to do. We got a lot of games to get through. Not only today, Thursday, and throughout the entirety of March Madness, which we came up with this idea last year to do it to, have a little bit fun. Could I do something a little bit different that we don't usually do? And we got some good people saying that they liked it. So here we go. Next race coming up here. Tyler Dooling up against Stephen Corbell. You ready?
I'm ready.
You ready? 3, 2, 1. And it's an early tip. This one's going to Tyler Dooling. Dooling up right now at the end of the first quarter by about 5 points. Though Stephen Corbell's got to start figuring this one out, falling behind just a little bit. Dooling's up probably by about 6 or 7 points at halftime. This has been the Tyler Dooling Show. Will Corbell be able to come back from behind? It looks like he will. Corbell, fast break, throws one up. Does he have enough? He does. Stephen Corbell will advance. So back-to-back interesting. I mean, back-to-back very close races. Back-to-back, which I actually like that it was different. Because Brandon started out... Actually, no. Brandon started out in the lead in his. And then ended up losing. Tyler Dooling started out the lead. Ended up losing. We'll see how it goes. We will see. Congratulations, though, to Mr. Corbell. I'll tell you what, that one was really, really close, man. Really, really close. So now we got the bracket updated. We will do 2 more games, which, what are the games that we'll get to after the first segment? I don't remember.
It'll be at the bottom of the bracket.
Or it'll just be after the 8-9, right?
So it'll be Philip Bogart.
So Philip Bogart, Rafael Murillo, and then Nathan Wolf and Luis Estella. That'll be the next 2 races that we end up doing after the first segment here on today's show. Just so all y'all know. All right, so my question is, this is going to be a segment that we do near the end of today's program. Who do you want the Raiders to draft at pick number 6? I feel like I see a lot of mock drafts out there with Ashton Jeanty, Teteroa McMillan. Also, you want to show them real quick? The updated Las Vegas region, here's where we stand. Brent advances. Stephen Corbell also advances. 16 going up against an 8 seed. It's going to be a fun bracket this year in the Vegas region. Who do you want the Raiders to draft at pick number 6? Gilbert Moreno says Cam Ward. Jeanty, no question, from the Jukester. T-Mac from Big Luck. Juan's going to go with Jeanty. I see T-Mac from Noctane Raider. Mock drafts are stupid and worthless from Raiders since 74. Here's the thing. I actually completely disagree with that take because to me, I think no matter what you do in life, the more you practice, the better you're going to be able to be prepared. I think also when you do mock drafts, you can kind of see the value in certain players. So I'll admit, I kind of disagree with that take.
And it also, at least for what we do, with how much draft content we do, it helps me memorize some of the players. It helps me memorize some of the names and kind of learn some of the new players because everybody knows Ashton Jeanty, Shedeur Sanders, Teteroa McMillan. Everybody knows the top 10 guys. But when you get to round 2, round 3, round 4, do you know some of those guys? More than likely not. And me and Mitch, we're still learning the rest of the draft outside the top 50 guys. So running those mock drafts really, and it helps us be able to see okay, who might be available in round 3 or round 4.
Yeah, I don't think it's about being accurate to Raiders since 74. I think it's just about understanding of where players could potentially fall.
I mean,
because accuracy, honestly, if you can get 25% of your first round accurate, you're actually going to be in the top percentile of mock drafts out there.
Yeah.
So
I bet you don't.
It's also fun.
I bet you don't fill out a March Madness bracket either.
True.
You're no chance I get it perfect.
I mean, that's the exact same mindset, right?
You're going to do one.
That's true. If you don't like mock drafts, you probably also don't like March Madness brackets. So, but I appreciate the insight. I do. That's why we do this show the way that we do it. At the end of the day, I want to be able to provide content that y'all enjoy. But at the same time, we don't obviously get to control many things here on the Raiders Report. But when I get to just sit back and at least give y'all my ideas, and when I go back and I look at some of the past mock drafts I had, I'll tell you this. If the Raiders would have done almost anything besides what they've done, we'd be in a lot better of a situation than we would definitely be in a better situation. What do you got for me? Oh, yeah? Oh, no.
Did you see that?
No, that must have just happened. So that scares the hell out of me.
That's something.
That scares the hell out of me. There is a picture right now on social media.
George Pickens put it on his IG page of him and Tom Brady on the sideline.
That would be a disaster.
Would you trade for George Pickens?
Wouldn't want any part of him.
In for no.
I'm telling you all this right now. I would not want any part of him.
Let me know.
He is a really talented receiver. But for a team that just got rid of, Devontae, I would have loved to keep Devontae Adams. But unfortunately, the Raiders got Devontae Adams. You can't go and say, I don't want drama and then go out and get George Pickens. Because not only would you have to trade for Pickens, you'd also have to give him an extension. And I'm not interested in that headache. I'll tell you that right now. You'd have to give me George Pickens for a 7th-round pick. And that's just never going to happen for Pittsburgh, and I understand that. But I think George Pickens is almost the definition of a diva. In all honesty, I can't imagine why the Raiders would want to do that. Corey said if he's cheap, it's not about being cheap because then you got to pay him. Like, to me, the only reason why George Pickens would not want to stay in Pittsburgh anymore is because he also would want a brand new deal. And I'm not going to trade for Pickens and then give him $25 million per year. That's scary, scary. It's his attitude. I'm with you, Raider Nation. He's super talented. Nobody's going to deny that he's talented. And if you told me you take the diva out of him, right, like his ability to block when he actually wants to block, I do think would be a really good fit with what we're trying to do. His down-the-field presence, I think, would fit really well with what we're going to do. But, like, the amount of times Devontae would give up on a play, look at how many times George Pickens, when I say literally would give up on plays, would literally give up on his players, it's a bad situation.
Here, I'm putting it up on the show right now. Give me one second.
Bad situation there.
I want to show
Quite frankly, it scares the hell out of me.
I want to show y'all.
Ramon Flores says, I'm done trading for wide receivers with Pittsburgh. Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant, both were a big old disaster. Jeff, yeah, we already had AB, and that's not even the craziest one. I also think, though, like, look at the shit that Pittsburgh wide receivers have gone through with, like, I don't know what the hell's going on in Pittsburgh, but they are just breeding divas left and right. Antonio Brown, Deonta Johnson, George Pickens. I mean, Juju was a bit of a diva. Chase Claypool was a diva. Dude, they were spitting out divas left and right. I'm good on that. I'm telling y'all right now, I am so good on George Pickens, man. Micah Hyde, I totally forgot AB played for the Raiders. Here's the thing. He didn't really play for the Raiders. He was on our roster for a few months in the offseason, helped out make Hard Knocks make maybe one of the best Hard Knocks seasons of all time, and that was about it. We gave up a third and the fifth round pick just so Antonio Brown could burn his feet in a cryo chamber. That was unbelievable offseason. Quite frankly, that's one of the offseasons that I remember the closest because that was also Max Crosby's rookie year. And we got featured on Hard Knocks, which was really, really cool back in the day. I'm good on diva receivers, man. I am totally
right,
good on
here
diva receivers. I actually think, though, could you put this in the first show that we're going to do? Like, put it maybe at the top or something? I don't know. Or at the back. Here's the picture that George Pickens just posted on his Instagram story. That's horrifying. Does he have a comment or anything on it?
No, it's literally just that. It's
Joey, we haven't heard from Geno yet because the Raiders, once they get his new deal done, that's when they're going to end up doing the press conference. They're going to do it 2 birds, 1 stone. Just so y'all know. Which, again, one of the things that we'll talk about today is actually my updated contract projection for Geno Smith because it looks a lot different now compared to what I've been talking about. And that's because of the extra money that has become available to Geno now on Sunday, which that's $16 million. I'll try to do a breakdown of how I think that contract will look today.
Somebody just said it on the in the live chat.
Yeah.
Coincidence? He made it a black and white photo, a little silver and black.
Silver and black photo with Tom Brady. It's scary.
Robert, what do you mean it looks photoshopped? It's from his IG.
Yeah, I mean, maybe George Pickens slapped a photo of himself with Tom Brady, but I don't know, dude. I'll tell you this, it scares the hell out of me. I want no part of George Pickens. 7th round pick, not interested. Because you'd have to pay him.
You wouldn't take George Pickens for his 7th round pick.
I don't want any part of him because you also have to pay him. I don't disagree with you. But giving up a 7th, but then are you going to pay George Pickens $25 million a year? Like, I'm not going to do that. Like, I understand the value of Pickens. Obviously, if you just look at it in a bubble, 7th round pick, sure, right?
So
but I'm not. But the draft pick is not what I'm worried about.
If you're looking for his IG, which this is my biggest pet peeve, and I used to cover high school football, and all the athletes love doing this on IG, is his IG is 1 period all lowercase issue. ISSUE. Has nothing about his name, nothing about anything, but it's his IG that has 481,000 followers, and all he does is post George Pickens.
Oh, really?
So it's him.
Yeah.
But I hate it. I hate when people have the
Anthony G, he's an extremely talented wide receiver that's had absolute cheeks for quarterbacks. And I'm not going to sit here and totally disagree with what you're saying. I'm not. But at the exact same time, the amount of times that guy quit on his team and has quit on his team, it's not a conversation of talent. And I understand that it's not a conversation of talent. But at the same time, how can you be an NFL team like the Raiders and talk about we want to bring in guys that love football, that are competitors, we're trying to build a good locker room culture, and then you bring in, I'm not kidding, I think the number one biggest headache right now in the NFL on offense is George Pickens. I think that teams are terrified, especially think about all the contracts that have been given out to wide receivers that don't work because these guys are the definition of selfish, and George Pickens is the definition of selfish. And I'll tell you this, if the Raiders ended up making that trade, I would hit the panic button. I could sit here and tell you why it would work and sit up here and tell you why there's a lot of upside. I could also sit up here and tell you that just goes against everything that this organization has preached over the past few weeks. Trading for George Pickens is the opposite of safe. Oh, my God, I'm terrified.
But don't you trust the coaching staff?
I do trust the coaching staff. I don't trust George Pickens. George Pickens is a wild card. Every week, you don't know what you're going to get. Are you going to get the George Pickens that, there was literally tape of him last season. Soon as it's hike, he's just standing there. Or he was walking on plays that didn't involve him. That can't happen. Especially in an offense predicated like Chip, where you need everybody to do their job because he's going to try to he's going to try to spread you out. As soon as you get one guy just taking plays off, it just doesn't set up for what this team's trying to do. Maybe Pickens is trying to get his way to Las Vegas because there was a lot of rumors that Pickens was not going to be happy about the DK trade.
Well, because I feel like
he wanted to get that contract.
Yeah.
And think about if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers and you go out and you trade for DK, and I know that they've been looking for a wide receiver, but they've been looking for a receiver for a long time because they know that they can't trust George Pickens. What up, Eric Castro? Super Chat Mitch. If Jeanty falls like he has in a lot of mocks and we get McMillan at 6, would it be worth the trade back into the first for Jeanty? To be real with you, no. And the only reason why that I say that is just because of how deep the running back class is, right? Where I would almost rather you just draft Quinshawn Judkins at 37 than trying to give up. In all honesty, if you try to go up and get Jeanty, you probably got to climb at least up into the top 12. And for the Raiders to go from 37 all the way up to the 12, you probably have to give up pick 37 and a first-round pick next season, which I don't want to do. Or you would have to give up 37, a third, and then a second-round pick next season. That's just not a smart thing to do, especially when if there's one position in this year's draft that is deep, it's running back. Besides that, I would say this is a very below-average draft overall. The running back depth, though, is legit. The running back depth here is definitely legit. How would you feel about Shedeur and Geno? Very recent pick. I think Raiders get Shedeur to back Geno and develop him and replace Geno. P.S. My job sucks. I'm sorry that your job stinks. I'll say this. I really don't think that Shedeur is going to be what the Raiders do. And if this is a team that does truly believe that they can win right now, then I don't really think taking a quarterback in a draft that, again, is very top-heavy makes sense the first 2 days. That's not what I would do. If I was the Raiders, I would try to take a quarterback on day 3 if that's kind of the area that we're going to go. And I didn't think that originally, right? When the Raiders first went out and they got Geno, I sat up here on the show and I said, I think now they're going to go out and get Shedeur Sanders. Based on what I think the Raiders are doing, I don't know if that's the plan anymore because Shedeur's not somebody that I think deserves to be taken in the top 10 picks. Shedeur to me is a QB that where if he's available at 37, even then, I don't know if I would take him. And it's just because he's got to take at least a year or two to develop. I know it's Tom Brady's guy, and I know that Geno and Shedeur do have a similar skill set. I literally said on the show that I thought the quarterback that reminded me the most of Shedeur that plays in the NFL right now was Geno Smith when he was first kind of coming out of college. Very accurate quarterback, and that's what Shedeur is, a very accurate quarterback. All right, y'all, so I want to get into the very first segment on today's show. Nick, could we sign Keenan Allen and Lockett, and would you do it? Could we? Yes. Quite frankly, I would say the top two receivers most likely that the Raiders would add this offseason would be Keenan Allen, Tyler Lockett. I'll also say that Robert Woods has got to be in that conversation. Brandon Cooks has got to be in that conversation. I would say that those are the top four veteran wide receivers that the Raiders would add in free agency if they are planning still on adding a wide receiver in free agency. If you want to get your questions and comments up here on the show, reminder, it's hashtag Raiders, or you can super chat. So I do want to get into the news and some of the rumors today on today's live program. Also, we're going to be doing a little bit different. I do want to show the George Pickens photo. Maybe do it like after the sub-read or wherever it might be. I think that's fine.
Okay.
Just so I want to be able to hit that just because I know I'm going to get a lot of people that ask me about it. And I don't have a segment designed around George Pickens. And I swear to God, Raiders, if you trade for George Pickens, I'm going to be pissed.
Clip that.
I am, dude. I'm going to be so mad. Because it would be up there with a move like Alex Kappa of, I don't really understand why the hell we're doing it. I get why Spytek in the relationship standpoint, but at the same time, I'm like, Kappa's really been the only move that I can't really get behind from a Raiders organizational standpoint. You ready?
Pickens to LV. Let's get it.
Oh, God, I hope not. Coming up, let's get in the latest news and rumors around the Silver and Black. Raider Nation, what's going on? Coming up here on today's show, we're going to get into the latest around Geno Smith, and I'm going to give you an updated contract projection because since Sunday, some stuff has changed, and, well, some of the numbers have changed as well. Also, the Raiders had a linebacker visit them yesterday. We're going to break down who that is, what it means if they wanted to sign him, and some other linebacker targets that they could potentially be looking at in free agency. If you didn't join our live show on Tuesday, this photo was literally just posted or on George Pickens' Instagram. And if you don't have an Instagram, you can always hit me up at Mitchell Renz 365. As you can see, it is a picture of Pickens with Tom Brady in silver and black. Let me be very clear. I have absolutely positively no interest whatsoever in trading for George Pickens. You could even offer him for a 7th-round pick. I'm not interested because this guy is literally the biggest diva in the NFL. How can you move on from one diva in Devontae and get an even bigger one, a guy that gives up on his team all the flipping time on the Pittsburgh Steelers? But it's not only just the trade. You would have to pay him, and I'm not paying George Pickens $20 million a year for the next long haul. If you're going to be a Raiders organization that preaches the importance of bringing in guys that love football and guys that are like, not me guys, George Pickens is the absolute opposite of a me guy. And I want no part of him with the silver and black. Let's get in now to the latest, though, around Geno Smith. He was traded to the Las Vegas Raiders on March 7th. And if you didn't know, $16 million became available to Geno on March 16th. The Raiders have been working on a long-term deal extension with their new QB1, and it was reported last week by Tashawn Reed that it was going to happen last week, but this has taken a little bit longer than expected. When it comes to Geno, the press conference is going to happen. When the Raiders end up getting this long-term deal done with Geno, that's when the press conference will ultimately end up going down here for the silver and black. But I have given out a bunch of different contract projections here on Geno, and I've been pretty spot on with some of my other ones through free agency. So what I wanted to try to do is just give you a little bit of an update of where we are right now on Geno and an updated look at a contract. We know for a fact that he's looking for $40 to $45 million a year. One of the reasons why Geno actually forced his way out of Seattle, which is kind of interesting. It's been reported that Geno was a big factor in why he tried to get out of Seattle. This wasn't just the Seahawks dumping him. This was Geno wanted to get out of Seattle because they weren't willing to pay him, and their rumors were they were looking to give him $35 million. That wasn't enough for Geno. And I would say this, you got to expect a 2 to 3 year extension, which is essentially tying Geno to Pete Carroll for 3 to 4 years. So coming up here, I'm going to be breaking down my Geno Smith contract projection, and it is a lot different compared to what I was talking about before because now the Geno contract situation is a little bit different. But I also got to say this. You got to learn from history. And when you look at the Baker Mayfield deal, when you look at the Geno Smith pass deal with Pete Carroll, I think you're going to see why the numbers I came up with are the way that they are. Here's one promise, though. If the Raiders end up getting a Geno Smith extension done, I will be live. Make sure those notifications are turned on. Make sure that you're subscribed to the Raiders Report, because I know this. Anytime that there's a controversial breaking news story, this show gets wild, and I think that this show is going to get wild because there's still a lot of people out there that are not sold on Geno Smith, which I get it. Not everybody's going to watch tape, but I will say if you watch some Geno Smith tape, you're going to feel a lot better around him. I do got to give a shout-out to the Noti gang. These are the people that I know for a fact are subbed. These are the people that I know a fact are going to be there live, because every time I drop a video, these are the first 5 people that pulled up on the last show that I did. So Matt, Tross, Sean, Ricky, Clement, appreciate all y'all pulling up to the Raiders Report. It does mean a lot to me that you're a part of the Noti gang. So let's first go to the 2-year contract extension idea that I have for Geno Smith. And if you're wondering, 2 years, this ties Geno to Pete Carroll for the next 3 years. So it's a 2-year extension on top of the 1 year that he already has. I'm looking at 2 years, $90 million with $48 million guaranteed. That comes out to $45 million per year, which then makes his new deal 3 years, $121 million. Again, he's 31 on the cap for this season, and that comes out to about an average of $40 million per year. This is the type of move that I could see the Raiders doing, and quite frankly, I would say is almost maybe the most likely version of the deal that I could see going down for Geno. The guaranteed money has gone down compared to what I originally thought because of them not getting that deal done before Sunday, March 16th. So the way that I think that this number could be broken down, and I am always trying to learn from past history, past contracts, because it's always a little bit different. It's kind of hard to digest. But back in 2023, Geno Smith signed a contract with Pete Carroll. It was 3 years, $75 million, and that's how it was. The cap ended up being broken down. It was 10.1, 26.4, 31.0. However, though, $17.4 million of that, which also was a roster bonus, just like Geno's $16 million roster bonus, was converted into cash to save the Seattle Seahawks some money on that cap hit. Let's also talk about Baker Mayfield, because John Spytek was a part of that regime when they went out and they signed Baker to a 3-year, $100 million deal in 2024. Here's how his numbers ended up being broken down. Low cap, but that cash at $25.6 million, which really helped ultimately lower that value for Baker Mayfield. Now that I'm looking at this is 2024, 6.9. 2025 is 38.3. 2026 is 45.8. That's how the Baker Mayfield numbers are down. That's on me. So how would I potentially look at a Geno deal? If he's signing that 2-year, $90 million deal, let's say he ends up getting it done in 2025, I think that you could see the 2025 cap hit at $14.8 million, which would be his base salary. They would convert that $16 million into a signing bonus, which wouldn't count against the cap. Then you're looking at about $40 million in 2026, and then you're looking at about $50 million in 2027. The important number here, though, is you use this number to get rid of a lot of those guarantees. Reminder again, $48 million. So that way you would really only be on the hook for a small amount of money, essentially like the way the Geno Smith contract ended up going down this past offseason. So I want you guys to go fill in the blank here. It's what the Raiders Report is all about. The Raiders will extend Geno Smith for blank years. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show, which means you're about to get hit with a YouTube ad break. While that ad is playing, I want you to scroll on down and give me your answer. The Raiders will extend Geno Smith for blank years. The numbers are 2 or 3. And I say that because of the way Pete Carroll's contract is ultimately structured. Friendly reminder, when the Raiders hired Carroll, they gave him a 3-year deal with a 4th-year option. Because he already has 1 year for Geno, 2 years, 3 with Carroll. 3-year extension, you give him kind of that out option on that 4th, just like Pete Carroll has. But let's talk about that 3-year extension idea. And this ties Carroll together and Geno with that potential 4th-year option. It would be 3 years, $125 million, and I could see the Raiders giving him just a little bit more money guaranteed. The way that I thought about the guaranteed money, it is about, so when you look at Geno's first contract that he got with Pete Carroll, the percentage of that was guaranteed was about 53% of that contract was guaranteed. When you look at the Baker Mayfield deal, very similar of about 53% of that contract was guaranteed. And I could see the Raiders going about it and doing it in the exact same way. So that final deal would be 4 years, whatever 125 plus 31 would be. The math didn't quite come out to be accurate, so again, that's on me. So you're looking at 3 years, 125 mil with 53 million guaranteed, coming out to about 41.6 million per year for Geno Smith. Ultimately, I think a 2 or a 3-year deal does end up going down for the Raiders, but you got to look at it not so much as we're paying Geno that full 3 to 4. By going out and giving a 2 to 3 year extension, it's really just a 2 at most 3-year contract. At least that's how I would want the nation to look at it. Coming up next year, though, let's talk about a visit that the Raiders had, a linebacker, and it's kind of an interesting one that I don't feel like I did a fully great job of breaking down the importance / what needs to happen if the Raiders wanted to go add the player that we're about to break down. Before I get into it, though, huge shout out to our sponsor here, PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and make sure that you use code CLNS. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. And since today is Tuesday, they also offer Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. So download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Sign up today and get $50 instantly. When you play $5, you don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. I don't know about y'all, but I cannot wait for March Madness. And I love being able to go out and watch some basketball games. And if anybody also wants to, I always say my favorite time of the year is obviously football season. But this is one of the best times of the year, watching all these different college basketball games. And you can also use PrizePicks for a lot of these games that are about to happen in March Madness. So you can go more, you can go less. I'm telling you this, every game that I'm planning on sitting down and watching, I will have a PrizePicks lineup in. And if you want to be able to run your game all season long on PrizePicks, or at least in the month of March, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Just make sure that you use code CLNS. All right, let's talk about Christian Elliss. He had a meeting with the Raiders yesterday. And for those that do not know, this is not just as simple as the Raiders can sign Christian Elliss. Because he was given a first refusal tender by the Patriots, the Raiders would essentially have to match a $3.3 million offer. If the Raiders put out an offer to Christian Elliss at $3.3 million, then the New England Patriots have 72 hours to match it. They would have 3 days in order to do it. I'll admit, typically when a player like Elliss does get, the first refusal tender, typically teams don't let that player go, and I also don't think that the Patriots thought that anybody was going to bring Elliss in on a visit, and sometimes that can backfire a little bit. But Elliss, he is a good inside linebacker, and for a Raiders team that needs to be able to go out and find another linebacker to pair next with Landon Roberts, I can understand the reason why they're looking this route. He did start 5 games last season for the New England Patriots, and he's a solid coverage, and he's good in special teams. You can say what you want about him, and I'm not going to sit up here and say, we got to go out and start Christian Elliss. It's a project player, but if you believe in your coaching staff and if you believe in somebody that has shown growth, and his dad also has played some years in the NFL, which does matter to this organization, maybe you get a little bit more out of him. Last year, according to PFF, a 72.6 overall grade. This was in about 541 snaps, I believe, but he also had 80 tackles, 1.5 sacks, coming off the best year that he's had as a pro. And one of the reasons why I am intrigued by Elliss is because I am a sucker for somebody that always shows improvement. And when you can get better and better and you show that you're coachable, that is a big stamp of approval to me, especially on defense, because I know how good our defensive staff is. I know how good Patrick Graham is. I know how solid we are. And then when you add that with somebody that is coachable and has a good motor, on top of the fact that they come from a NFL football family background, all of those things are important. The question is, though, are you going to give Christian Elliss at least $3.3 million, right? Because that's the problem. You could offer him $3.3. New England could say, well, not so fast, sweetheart. And then you could be in a bidding war for Christian Elliss, and that's not necessarily the game that I want to be in. So here's your opportunity to call the shots. Be John Spytek here for a second. Should the Raiders sign Elliss? I want you to type sign, or if you're like, nah, man, I want you to type pass. I will say this. If you are somebody that types pass, at least give me another name that you would throw out there for the simple fact of if they're looking at Elliss, that also means that they're probably looking at some other linebacker candidates. My answer is going to be coming up here, though, in just a moment. I would say you could go out and sign him if it costs less than $4 million. If we start getting into this game where it's going to be higher than that, I'm not really on board with it. I'll also say that I think he's actually a good pairing with Landon Roberts. Roberts is a downhill thumper. Elliss is a very fast sideline-to-sideline linebacker. I believe he ended up running in the 4.5s at the combine. But because he's an intelligent player and because he's getting better and better and better, I do think it would be intriguing. I'll also tell you this. He's better than Amari Burney. He's better than Amari Gaynor. He's better than Smith. He's better than Tommy Eichenberg. And he's better than Kenai Malga. And also better than Jackson Mitchell. Y'all know that I like Tommy Eichenberg, and he is a good project player, but I don't think that he's ready to go right away. And putting him next to a Landon, that's really going to expose yourself in a coverage game, especially at linebacker. So because of that, I would just keep in mind other linebackers that the Raiders could target, which, if it was up to me right now, I would say one of the top guys that I would keep an eye on is E.J. Speed. Had a really solid year last season, 142 tackles. I don't know what the price tag is going to be necessarily on a linebacker like Speed. Maybe you want to go out and get a Kaiser White. That could be another linebacker to keep in mind. I would say that those are the top two LBs that the Raiders should target to pair with a Landon Roberts that's still out there on the free agent market. Isaiah Simmons is another really big project where I could sit up here and go, if you're going to take a risk on Christian Elliss, why not also take a risk on Isaiah Simmons, a linebacker safety hybrid with all the athletic ability in the world? If you want to go with somebody that you know might not be a true linebacker one still, and I say still, but you know he has a good relationship with the Landon Roberts. Jerome Baker could be another name that I'll at least throw out there as a linebacker option. And then Chaz Surratt. Chaz Surratt kind of fits this exact same bill as Elliss because doesn't have a lot of playing time. He had to step up last season due to injury for the New York Jets. But overall, if the Raiders are looking at Christian Elliss, to me, and I think to everybody else, that little light bulb's got to go off in your head and go, well, that means that they're also looking at some other potential linebackers. And obviously, if the Raiders go out and they add anybody else in free agency, we will make a video on it. Now, reminder to all of y'all, I am on social media at Mitchell Renz 365. We have had over 3,000 new subscribers probably in the last 28 days. And I get that not all of y'all maybe are new to the or like not know to this show, know exactly what we do here. We provide free Raiders content every single day on social media, here on YouTube. And if you want to rock with the #1 Raiders channel in the world, we're getting close to 190,000 subs, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I can't wait to be able to celebrate with all of y'all. Who knows? Maybe it's going to be exactly when the Geno Smith deal ends up going down. Because I'll promise you this, when the Geno Smith deal ends up going down, it's going to get rowdy here on the Raiders Report. All right, y'all, so we were talking about George Pickens. Would you trade for Steelers wide receiver George Pickens? Give me a Y for yes, or I want you to give me an N for no. Yes or no? We know that the Raiders have been looking at receivers. We know that the Raiders have been looking at a true #1. I mean, I don't know this. The #1 options are slowly dwindling down. Is George Pickens better than Jacoby Myers without the drama?
Drama aside?
Drama aside.
Yes.
Okay.
You were actually I got some messages out there from the bullpen being like, does Mitch really not want George Pickens for a 7th?
I'm not kidding. I wouldn't want him. I've seen this song and dance before. He's going to be a player that if you end up signing him to $25 million, not interested.
Is Chase right there?
Chase is, yeah.
Okay. He was messaging me.
Oh, really?
And he said how he would trade for a 7th and he'd be an all-pro.
And that's the difference, though. Like, if he went to the Philadelphia Eagles, maybe. But at the exact same time, I don't know if he would. Because he's somebody who doesn't want to block. He wants to catch the football. And that was a big problem. And that's kind of what Philly does. I just think for the Raiders and all of the risk that comes with George Pickens, you cannot afford to bring in a player like that. You cannot afford to bring in a player that's that big of a locker room cancer. I'm just not going to fall into the same song and dance. Somebody said another AB. I hear you loud and clear. I don't know how you
think
can
he's that
want to have a
bad?
good locker room. Huh?
You think he's that bad? You think he's another AB?
I do. Yeah. I actually don't think there's a bigger diva in the NFL right now than George Pickens, quite frankly. And I'm not kidding you when I say that. There's not another player in the NFL that I think I would want to have less on my team right now if I'm trying to do what the Raiders are doing, which is build a good locker room culture. It's go out there and just show, like, I want guys that go out there and compete every snap. And that's just not what George Pickens is. Harry, what up, man? If you type pass, make sure you spit on that thing.
Speaking of that.
Speaking of spitting on that thing, we got 2 more races to do here for our March Madness bracket. We got Philip Bogert up against Rafael Murillo, and then we're going to have Nathan Wolf up against Luis Estella. Ryan Decker, Mitch, you're smoking. He's not as bad as AB. Hey, man. We'll see. I'll say this. George Pickens is a bigger headache on the Steelers than Antonio Brown ever was. That's a fact. I also think with the way that you've seen a lot of these other Pittsburgh receivers leave Pittsburgh and have been a disaster. Tell me another Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver that has left Pittsburgh recently and has succeeded elsewhere. Off the top of your head, give me one. Deonta Johnson, disaster. Chase Claypool, disaster. Antonio Brown, disaster. Martavis Bryant, disaster. I don't know. These are the names that are coming to my mind. I mean, I'm just saying, dude. Like, I don't want a diva. I don't want a diva. Not trying to get into it.
So just anybody that goes to Pittsburgh, wide receiver?
No, I don't know why it's been like that recently, but, you know, like somebody said, the hate on George Pickens is crazy. The hate on George Pickens is his own doing, though, dude. Like, I'm not just pulling these things out of thin air. Like, there's a reason why.
Juju Smith-Schuster did win a Super Bowl.
Sure. With Kansas City. Yeah. But let's be real. Juju on the Steelers compared to when Juju left was not even close. Like, again, he won a Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes. There's at times where I wonder if I'm a receiver, could I win a Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes? We'll see, though. We'll see. All right, y'all. Philip Bogert.
Mike Wallace had some good years.
Up against Rafael Murillo. Yep. Mike Wallace. He was good once he went to Miami. Santonio Holmes is an interesting name. Let me know who you got. P for Philip, R for Rafael. Here we go. Winner advances to the round of 32. 3, 2, 1. Let's get it going. Murillo's out to an early start here, Chuggs. Which the way that these races have gone, the person who starts out in the lead has typically lost. We will see. Murillo, Philip Bogert, this one's neck and neck. Oh, man, is Murillo going to pull away? Is Philip Bogert going to have anything in the tank? 5 seconds to go. Oh, my goodness. Philip Bogert. What a race, dude. That one was different. I thought that was going to be Murillo just coasting to a win. Philip Bogert with the win. Turn on the turbo, baby. Turn on the turbo, baby. Ryan Decker. Juju was drama. Then he went to Kansas City, and you didn't hear anything of him. Because that's the Chiefs. And unfortunately, the Raiders don't have that pedigree yet. You know what I mean? Like, the Raiders aren't in a situation like a team like Kansas City that can take on all that risk. And that's just my opinion. Like, to me, I also am against George Pickens because I don't know why. Like, I just think that there's a lot of better options out there. Like, I would rather you find out a way to either draft a receiver a little bit higher and that you don't have to pay all that money to, or go sign somebody that can give you what George Pickens can give you when he's motivated. Luis Estella up against Nathan Wolf. Here we go. 4 against 13. Let's get it popping. Luis Estella out to an early lead. Are we about to get another one here? I will say this. If we go through all the races today and they're all like the first person leading ends up losing, we might have to switch it up, which I'll be real. I didn't think that was going to be the case.
Usually the dog ones are pretty good.
Well, the dog ones, when we have a group of people, are always interesting. They're always back and forth.
Maybe a little bit longer.
Nathan Wolf with the win.
Maybe we go 40 seconds.
40 seconds? Well, how long is a college basketball game? 20 and 20?
Yeah.
We could go 20 and 20.
So 40 seconds. We can do that. Next one we'll do 40 seconds.
Next one we'll try 40 seconds. Again, we're trying this with all y'all as well. Congrats, though, to Nathan Wolf. Big time dub. Big time dub. So once you get the bracket updated, I just want to be able to show them. We still have 4 more races to go today. 4 more races to go today. We're going to do 2 more after our next segment, and then another segment, and then we got 2 races to end it. So here is what the Las Vegas region looks like at the top. You got Brent Wilson up against Stephen Corbel. Then you got Philip Bogert up against Nathan Wolf. I'm telling you this right now, that 4-5 matchup for Philip Bogert and Nathan Wolf, that's going to be a fun one. Let's look then at the bottom of the Las Vegas region. The next race is coming up. Ray Aguirre up against Roger Braun. Rebel Montana up against Richard Kelly. Those are going to be the races coming up here in just a moment. Chuggs, I've been drinking a lot of water. I've been trying to stay hydrated.
Why do you hate George Pickens?
Can I go take a pee real quick? I know. Let me go take a quick little leak. I'll be right back. I also just want to grab, like, something. I don't know. I'm, like, hella dizzy right now, so I got to figure out what the hell's wrong with me. I'll be right back. Give me, like, 5 minutes. Yeah.
All right, here we go. Welcome to the George Pickens hate report. We all hate George Pickens here. I'm just kidding. I would trade a 6th-round pick for George Pickens. I'm not going to lie. I would trade us. And my man Chase Sr. out there was messaging me the same thing. I would take George Pickens for a 6th or 7th-round pick. Let me message our Steelers host right now. I said, how much to trade for Pickens? We'll see. I'd be down. I just messaged our Steelers producer. How much to trade for Pickens? He's typing. The 3 dots are up. He said, not even a 7th is absurd. But it's a day 3 probably, a 4th or a 5th. I would do that. A 4th or a 5th? I don't know. Jim. Seems like it might be worth it. For a 5th-round pick, Elliott says send Pickens to the Texans. For a 5th-round pick, I'd be okay. I would do it. I don't know. Ryan Campbell, you're up next. Use this photo in the donation as the picture for the March Madness. Okay, we'll try to fix that, Ryan Campbell, going on. We were trying to get everything together, try to make sure everything was good so we could just have the bracket and everything ready just because, last week was insane with free agency and everything going on. But I got you, Ryan. I got you. 5th round for Pickens. Azul said trade us C.J. Stroud. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Send him to the Giants. Chuggs, tell my friend Aiden Dallas is garbage. Dallas is garbage. I mean, it's a nice city. A little stuck up, but it's a nice city. No way, too much money. Think, Chubbs. Think. I mean, how much? I mean, looking at George Pickens, I believe you would have him for another year.
If they traded, they'd have to pay.
Yeah, he's on the last year of his deal.
Yeah, again, like it's not a matter of George Pickens being talented. It's a matter of you're probably gonna have to give up. Let's say I actually think it'd be like a 4th round pick because Pittsburgh would want to move on from him because he's a headache. So you got to give up a 4th, but he's probably going to be looking for 25, 26, 27 mil.
Think so?
Why wouldn't he be? Like, he is a good receiver. And, and that's not the doubt. Like, people know that he's talented. But, I mean, if I was George Pickens, I would say I would want a deal like Nico Collins. He might even want more than that. I don't know.
I mean, last 3 years, 800, 1,100, 900 yards in those 3 seasons. This past year, he played in 14 games, only started 12. He got 900 yards.
Yep. And some of those games, he was benched for being a shitty teammate. Or got pulled in a game. Like, I get it. Yeah, he just scares the hell out of me, man. Still just scares me.
24 years old. I mean, I would do it.
Okay.
And especially because
I think
if you're George Pickens, you probably believe in yourself. You can trade for him, sign him to a 1 or 2 year deal to where you can get out of it after 1 or 2 years. If he's bad.
I mean, here's me being real with y'all, because if the Raiders were to do it, I would sit up here and go, why did they do it? And how can I make this a positive thing? The reason why DK Metcalf fell in the draft was people were worried about character concerns. It's actually one of the biggest reasons. Like, people knew how talented he was. There were some injury concerns, I think, in that as well with DK, but there was character concerns. And, DK got advice from his agent, hey, when you go meet Pete Carroll, take your shirt off, go meet him. And I wonder if you're Pete Carroll, you go, well, people thought, DK Metcalf was this head case that fell in the draft all the way to the second round, like late second rounds and picks, 60s? Maybe you could also turn that player into George Pickens. Because, again, he's super talented. I just don't love it. Don't love it. All right, y'all, let's go to the next segment coming up here on today's episode. And this one's going to be around players that I want the Raiders to target at pick number 6. What pick for Pickens? Oh, about 6, 7.
I don't know, like 6, 7.
All right, I forgot that that's a joke somehow. I guess I got to be on social media a little bit more. Sorry, Noah. Ryan Campbell used this photo in the donation as the picture for March Madness from Ryan Campbell.
Yeah, we got that while you were gone.
I got you, Ryan. I got you, bro. Yeah, I don't know, but for some reason, like some of the pictures that we used last year, I noticed like if y'all like actually changed your photo on YouTube and like the picture couldn't pull, so because of that, I had to just use some of the photos that I knew I was going to be able to bring in. But I got you, bro. I got you. All right, let's talk about these top players. So the question that I got for y'all out there is this. Who do you want the Raiders to draft at pick number 6? Let me know down below, because that's what we're going to be discussing here on the show. So when you let me know.
Navman, would you want George Pickens? Let me know.
Nav, would you want George Pickens? I can see why Pickens wants out, because they got DK. I agree. I mean, that kind of sounds like a me guy, though. Like, why would you not be excited about the opportunity to play with DK Metcalf? It's because he's a me guy.
If Chat Sports brought in another major Raiders content creator and they paid him more than you, would you be excited to work with them?
I think it's totally different. Because if that happens, I don't have a job. So,
I mean, that's probably what he's thinking. He's like, after this year, I might not have a job with the Steelers.
Sure, might not have a job with the Steelers, but he still has a job. Like, I think it's very different. Very different. But I'll say this, man. If that guy came in and helped Chat Sports become even bigger, I mean, that's better for all of us. I mean, I don't know. It puts more money in my pocket. I know that. All right, y'all. Let's get into the next segment then. And I will say this. The players that we're breaking down, they are ranked. So that's important. I also switched up the rankings, which I don't know if you noticed. I think I got it. I think we're good. Number 10, Georgia.
Yeah, that's who I have.
Okay, cool.
It's
when I was doing it, when I made the show this morning, I switched up. Cool. All right, we're good.
And it's a coldie.
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, y'all ready? Coming up, let's talk about some draft prospects that the Raiders could be looking for. If you're a Raiders fan and you want to have more Raiders draft videos, live coverage of the 2025 NFL Draft, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications. I promise you this, we're going to be live all 7 rounds. Every single pick. In fact, you're going to get the picks here at Chat Sports before you see them up there on TV. If you enjoyed our live free agency coverage over 30 hours, you're going to love what we do for the NFL draft. It's why Chat Sports is actually standing here today. Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, and coming up on today's show, I'm going to tell you what I want Pete Carroll, John Spytek to do at the number 6 pick during the 2025 NFL Draft. Think of it like this. The Raiders are on the clock, and we got a big-time decision to make. What I am going to do is I'm going to tell you the top 10 players, top 10 things that I want the Raiders to do when they are officially on the clock when it is the 2025 NFL Draft. So I'm going to be ranking these players from 10 all the way down to 1. The person at number 1 is what I want the Raiders to do at pick number 6. So first, though, before we get into this, again, I'm going to go from 10. I'm going to work my way down to 1, but I did want to mention that there are certain players that I do not have in this ranking for the simple fact of I don't think that they're going to be there at number 6. So what I ended up doing was I ended up running a bunch of mock drafts, and essentially Cam Ward, Abdul Carter, and Travis Hunter were never available to me at number 6. So because of that, they're not going to be featured in this video. Though I think y'all know where I stand on Cam Ward. I still would take Cam Ward at 6 if he was there, and that's even with Geno Smith. So let's first go to number 10 here, and it's going to be Jalen Walker, edge rusher out of Georgia. I think he is a phenomenal specimen. He is a great, great athlete, and I understand that the Raiders already have Malcolm Koonce. But you know what? I'll tell you what, this is a great, great Caleb Chasen type of replacement. Quite frankly, you go out and you draft Jalen Walker, you turn Malcolm Koonce into your Caleb Chasen replacement. 6 sacks last season for the Georgia Bulldogs. Did play outside linebacker, but I think he's a truly elite edge prospect. Long frame, great burst. That change of direction speed is something that I love to be able to see. He can also be used to cover tight ends. I'll admit, watching a linebacker cover a tight end in college is a lot different than watching Jalen Walker cover a tight end in the pros. Like, it could be something that he does from time to time, but 9 out of 10 times, I want Walker pinning his ears back, getting north and south, and going out and getting his quarterback. Next guy coming up here on the list is somebody that I'll consider a my guy. I started talking about Jihad Campbell many, many months ago, and I said, this is my favorite linebacker, and he's going to climb up draft boards. And now I can't even believe it. He's in my top 9 overall prospects that I would be interested for the Raiders to draft. I will say this. This is a little bit early at number 6. I'm not going to lie to y'all, but the Raiders need another linebacker. And you're looking at the best linebacker in this group. He had 119 tackles, 5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. When you lead a team, especially a team that is as talented as what Alabama was on the defensive side of the football, when you lead them in tackles for loss, sacks, forced fumbles, not only is he a great athlete that's got legit sideline-to-sideline speed, and it might be the best in this class, I also said this on a show, and I'm going to stick to it. I think that he's talented enough to be an edge. And when I watch Jihad Campbell's tape, it kind of reminds me of somebody like Micah Parsons, where you're going, this dude is an absolute alien on the football field. Why are we not using him as an edge? And I think somebody like a Jihad Campbell could be used like that, where I almost wonder in today's day and age in the NFL, we always talk about versatility at safety, versatility, corners, versatility here and there. I'm starting to wonder if a versatile linebacker that can drop back into coverage, that can go sideline to sideline, but also can blitz 5 out of 10 times, is going to be a rule that starts popping up here a little bit. Jihad Campbell comes in here, though, at number 9. Let's go to number 8 on my list. I got to go Will Johnson. And all of these rankings are obviously after free agency, and it's also after some of the moves that the Raiders have, and let's be real, have not made. Will Johnson, though, is going to come in here at number 8, 6'2", 200-pound cornerback out of Michigan. I'll tell you this right now. He is no longer my number 1 cornerback that I think that the Raiders could and should draft. He did have an injury which really hurt his season last year, but he's long, he's athletic. We know Pete Carroll loves those type of cornerback prospects. His biggest weakness is his recovery speed. I wish I could have seen what he would have ran in the 40. I don't expect a lot. He does have an eye for making plays, and you can tell that he wants to go get a pick. You can tell that he wants to make it happen. And if the Raiders are able to get pressure with 4, Will Johnson's going to be a good corner. If the Raiders are unable to get pressure and Will Johnson's got to, play with players a little bit longer than what he's accustomed to, that could hurt him a little bit because he has this kind of like Jack Jones type of mentality. He's just way, way better than what Jack Jones is. But the double move hurts Will Johnson. And I think it's because he's so used to playing where he knows a quarterback's got to get rid of the ball quickly. And when he is able to play with that level of confidence, he's unbelievable. It's just I worry that he could struggle in year one. And I don't want to compare it to Jacorian Bennett because he's way better than Jacorian. But like Jacorian struggled in year one and was a lot better in year two, I could see a similar path like that with Will Johnson. So my question is, this is going to be the pinned comment here on today's show. Who do you want the Raiders to draft at pick number 6? Let me know the player that you're thinking about. My answer in terms of who I want the Raiders to draft at pick number 6, you're going to have to wait to watch at the very end of today's show. Let's go to number 7. I got Jahdae Barron, cornerback from Texas, and I'm putting Jahdae Barron above Will Johnson based on the fit with Pete Carroll, based on the fit with Patrick Graham. When you watch players go out there do their thing, he kind of reminds me of a Brian Branch where teams didn't know exactly where to put him as a safety or as a corner. They just said, we're going to name him an athlete. We're going to let him go out there and do his thing. And that's exactly what Jahdae Barron does. It kind of reminds me of the way that they would use an Earl Thomas. Like, imagine if you could use Earl Thomas and then also make him a cornerback. That's kind of what Barron did. A true Swiss Army knife, played outside, he played in the slot, he played in the box as a dime linebacker at times for Texas. He's quicker than he is fast, which I would refer to that as a quick, twitchy athlete, kind of like somebody like, again, Raiders fans, Amik Robertson, where he's not going to go run somebody down in a 40, but you need somebody to move and win in a phone box. Jahdae can do a lot of that stuff. He can also defend the run. He's not afraid to be a great coverage corner, and he's also really good at being able to go out there and blitz. He's not like a player like Kyle Hamilton, and I'm not saying that they would use him like a Kyle Hamilton, but the new position that I do think is going to start catching on in the NFL are the Swiss Army knife DBs that can go out there and play almost like a joker role. Jahdae Barron is my new number 1 corner, and I know the Raiders like that kid a lot. Let's go to number 6 on the list. It's Mason Graham at defensive tackle. Quite frankly, I can't believe he's number 6 on my list, and I say that because, hell, he might be the favorite player that I have in this draft. That's not the guy that you're going to see coming up here that's going to be ranked number 1 essentially on my list. But Mason Graham is somebody that you put him on the interior, and we have one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. I also, though, like Adam Butler a lot, and the Raiders also like Adam Butler a lot. They gave him a 3-year deal. You also got Christian Wilkins. They also have Tyree Wilson. It's not that I don't like Graham. It's, to me, there are other bigger needs out there that we could potentially get at pick number 6. I love the way that he sheds blocks. I love the way that he takes on double teams, and he would really help out Crosby be the best version of himself. You can also tell, and I love this about players on the interior, when a guy comes from a wrestling background. JPJ was a wrestler in high school, and you can tell when he goes out there and he gets his hand on somebody, like there's that old saying, at least where I grew up, you don't mess with wrestlers, and you don't mess with farmers. They're just a lot stronger than what you really think that they are, and they have certain techniques that, you just don't grow up learning how to do. Mason Graham is a mauler on the interior, but because I think that the Raiders' defensive line is probably their strongest, not probably, it is their strongest asset on defense, I would like for them to be able to go out and look at another position, but let's not get it twisted. If Mason Graham is called to the Raiders during draft day, I'm going to be absolutely ecstatic. Before we get into the top players that I would want the Raiders to pick at number 6, reminder, if you need a Geno Smith jersey, they are available. Go to chatsports.com/Raiders jerseys. You're not going to get a jersey that says Smith 00 on it. Whenever Geno announces his number, it's going to be number 7. Trevon Merrick was 7 last season. He's not on the team this year. You're going to get a jersey, but the reason why you got to pre-order is because normal fans are going to wait until it says 7. I'm telling y'all, you can pre-order the jersey now. When the jersey's there, then you're going to be able to get it, and you're going to be one of the very first people to have a Geno Smith Raiders jersey. If you want to get a Brock Bowers, a Max Crosby, any other type of jersey, women's, youth, you want OGs like Bo Jackson, Howie Long, all those, chatsports.com/Raiders jerseys. I will also say this. Look into jersey insurance. That way, if a player is traded, you can get a brand new jersey. Chatsports.com/Raiders jerseys. Let's go to number 5, and I'm probably the lowest guy in the Raiders world that has Jeanty as the number 5 option for the silver and black. And it's not because I don't love me some Jeanty. It's simply because you got to be able to build an offensive line. You got to put a lot of other pieces around Jeanty to make taking a running back at pick number 6 worth it. I'm not a dummy, though. Like, there is so much rumors, so much hype around the idea of the Raiders taking Jeanty. Mel Kiper put out a mock, Jeanty at number 6. Daniel Jeremiah, Jeanty at number 6. I feel like half the time, it's why I don't even look at some mock drafts anymore, because I can close my eyes and go, there is a better than 50% chance that Jeanty is going to be the pick mocked to the Raiders at number 6. He is a compact runner, incredible strength. My favorite part of his game might be his balance and his burst. For him to be able to get popped and then quickly put a foot in the dirt, get north and south, love it. I think he's got great vision. I think his patience would be phenomenal in a Chip Kelly system. He can run through you. He can hit a home run. He's got good hands. Does need to work a little bit on his receiving game. Does need to work on his pass protection, but I'm not trying to draft a running back that's this talented, like at number 6, that also is not a complete package. Jeanty is a complete package to me at running back. I think he's clearly the number 1 running back in this year's class, but the reason why I have him ranked where I do, it's not because of Jeanty. Hell, Jeanty, you could say, is probably a top 3 prospect in this class. It's because if there is one position that is extremely deep this year, it is running back. And if you could get a running back in round 2, round 3, you might argue that your overall team might look better by passing on Jeanty at number 6. Let's go to number 4 here. It's going to be Tetairoa McMillan, wide receiver from Arizona. And there is only one wide receiver in college football the past 2 years that has had over 1,300 receiving yards. His name is Tetairoa McMillan. At 6'5", 210 pounds, he's got a relationship, a good one, with Raiders offensive line coach Brandon Carroll, Pete Carroll's son. McMillan and Carroll had some overlap for a few years there in Arizona, but if you're looking for a true X, and it's been well documented that the Raiders are looking for a true X, he is the best wide receiver if he was on the free agent market, and if the Raiders want to be able to go out and get a true one and not have to pay him a crazy amount of money, you could just take him at 6. He is a tall, rangy wide receiver, which fits exactly what Geno Smith does well. He throws up these fade balls. I've said it often. I want a guy that turns 50-50 balls into 80-20, and that's what McMillan does. He's a glider, easy motion, can run a complete route tree, reminds me a lot of a Drake London and a Mike Evans. And that style of receiver paired with Geno Smith, I would rather the Raiders take Tetairoa McMillan than Ashton Jeanty based on what this team looks like right now. Let's go to the number 3 here on the list. It's going to be Will Campbell, offensive lineman for LSU. If you don't win in the trenches, you're not going to win in the NFL. I am a trench builder, and that is why I am going with Will Campbell here, and I'm going to put him as an offensive lineman. There's going to be some teams that say that he can't play tackle because he's got short arms, and this was a joke that we heard at the Combine, and I'm almost wondering if it's serious. When Will Campbell would put his arms down, he couldn't put his hands in his pockets. That's how short his arms are. True T-Rex arms. The reason why I have Campbell here, though, is because I think that you could potentially put him at left guard. I think that you could potentially put him at right tackle. Hell, maybe you put him at left tackle and you kick Colt Miller over to the right side, though Miller might want a new contract in order to do that. He is a stud in the run game. He is a stud in the pass game as a blocker. He has the ideal height, bulk, athleticism. He is extremely athletic. If he had long arms, I actually think he'd be no doubt a top 5 pick, and we would have started the show off of you're never going to get Will Campbell at 6. But because he's got shorter arms and teams are afraid of that, I could see him sliding a little bit, but I do love me some Will Campbell because I want to win in the trenches. And if you're not having a dominant offensive line, then why the hell did we just go trade for Geno Smith? Let's go to the next name here. It's Armin Membu, the offensive tackle from Missouri. And the more and more tape I watch on this guy, the more and more I fall in love with him. He's 6'3". He's 315 pounds. He had an overall PFF grade of 90.4. But the reason why I love Membu, his ability to run, his ability to move is great for what Chip Kelly wants. We also have the ability to pass protect, run block. He does that at a very high level. Also, he played right tackle the past 3 seasons where, Campbell was on the left side. You draft Armin Membu, you let him take over for DJ Glaze, and that instantly makes this Raiders offensive line a top 10 unit. And that's how confident I am. He's got the highest upside of any offensive lineman in this draft, but he's also ready to start on day 1. Also, one of my favorite notes that I saw from a Missouri coach said that there's nobody that's going to outcompete him, and he loves to embarrass people. I want an offensive lineman that not only wants to just push your dick in the dirt, he wants to rub your face in a little bit too. And when you listen to Armin Membu, at the NFL Combine, that primal scream that he was letting out and running the 40, it's because it matters to him. And when you listen to about a player who wants to not only change his life, but everybody's life around him, there is not a player that I am more confident in right now to be an offensive tackle prospect for the next 10 years than Armin Membu. And you know what? I also think that John Spytek values tackle play. Pete Carroll values tackle play, and I think that they also value it because of the numbers that Membu and Will Campbell have put up. Like, I don't throw around these type of numbers lightly, but the only offensive lineman in NFL Combine history to be 315 pounds or more, to have a 30-inch vertical, and then run a sub-5 40-yard dash at that size, Will Campbell, Armin Membu, Tristan Wirfs, who John Spytek drafted, and Trent Williams. If you are a believer that winning in the trenches is important, those are two guys that I think that you got to consider drafting and trying to make this offensive line overall a whole lot flipping better. But we still got one more name to go. So you're about to get hit with a YouTube ad break. I want you to scroll on down and tell me, who do you think number one is on the list? Because I think it might surprise you. Before I reveal who number one is, I do want to put in some honorable mentions. Shedeur Sanders is not going to crack my list here. There are all those players that I mentioned. I would take over Shedeur. Tyler Warren, tight end at Penn State. Believe me, I never thought Brock Bowers was going to be a pick at 13. Tyler Warren, Brock Bowers would be fun. That also means that you're moving on from Michael Mayer. Matthew Golden, one of the notes that we had at the Combine was somebody did tell us that Golden is the number one receiver on some teams' big boards. Could be something to keep in mind. And then Emeka Egbuka, he obviously has that connection to Chip Kelly. I don't think that that's going to be somebody at 6. I don't think Matthew Golden would be somebody at 6. I think that those two receivers could be names to keep an eye on. Maybe the Raiders try to trade back in to round 1. So what do I want the Raiders to do at pick number 6? The number one thing I want them to do. Notice how I said thing. I want the Raiders to trade back. And I know that I started the show off saying the top players. The top player I want the Raiders to pick, Armin Membu. In fact, the top 4 players, and I think it's clear-cut, are all up on your screen. But the number one thing that I want the Las Vegas Raiders to do at pick 6 is to move back. And I say that because there are a lot of players that you could take at 6 that I think that could be later on, like, honestly available to you at picks 12, 13, 14, 15. I also know that the Raiders have been playing it safe in free agency. That also means, though, you're going to need more starters and you're going to need more depth. If we're going to need more starters and more depth that come from the draft, I want to get as many players as I humanly possibly can in those top 3 rounds, in those top 4 rounds, because after 3, 4 rounds, the talent level in 5, 6, 7 drastically falls off. The quarterback, I think it's okay. You can find a day 3 guy, but instead of having only 3 picks in the first 3 rounds, having only 4 picks in the top 107, if the way that the Raiders operated in free agency, I want them to try to get 5 to 6 picks in the top 107. So in my mind, I'm trading back in the first round, and I wouldn't even be upset if the Raiders had to try to trade back yet again, because if the idea is that we're going to try to place certain players in the draft that have to start, you better go out and you better get some extra picks, because this team right now is too thin depth-wise to rely on the NFL draft the way that I think that we're relying on it right now. So one more time, let's go through this. The top players that I want the Raiders to pick at number 6, Jalen Walker, Jahad Campbell, Will Johnson, Jahdae Barron, Mason Graham, and then Ashton Jeanty, Teteroa McMillan, Will Campbell, Armin Membu. And then at number 1, I want the Raiders to trade back. This is not based on how talented I think these players are. This is simply based on what the Raiders need, what the Raiders want, and ultimately what I think makes us the best overall football team. In my book, the player that makes the Raiders the best overall football team to go out and draft at pick 6 is, in fact, Armin Membu. All right, y'all, March Madness, we've been breaking it down here on the Raiders Report, but also actual March Madness is going down. Which 1 seed do y'all think loses first? Houston, Auburn, Florida, Duke. This is a tough one.
I want to say Duke because I don't know how healthy Cooper Flagg is, and he's one of their best players on their team right now. He got hurt in the conference tournament.
Though I thought it was reported or speculated that he'll be good by the round of 32.
Yeah.
But, I mean, still, though, I mean, that could be a nagging injury. You don't know if it's going to flare up again.
Yeah, I was about to say, you never know with
ankles?
With that going out and going back out and playing, the risk of re-injury is high, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Coming back like 2 weeks later.
I mean, you're definitely not wrong.
And Anthony, you're probably not wrong either that I wonder how far they sit him out.
Duke can't win the Natty without Flag. They can probably get to the Sweet 16
Anthony Green
without
said
him.
Duke can win without Flag. How far, though?
Yeah.
Do you think they can get to the Sweet 16 and keep him out?
I'm telling y'all right now, Duke is a good team. The team that I told myself I would pick beginning of the year was Florida. I love watching them. Wow. Andre James is going to the Chargers. Yikes. So Andre James did just buy a home in Las Vegas, and I know it was one of the things that he wanted to be able to stay on the West Coast with a significant other.
Do you want to go off and make a quick short?
I
think it's worth it.
You think it's worth it?
I mean, going to a division rival.
All right, fair enough. I'll be right back. I'm going to go make a quick short on Andre James going to the flipping Chargers. Minshew to the Chiefs, Andre James to the Chargers. What on earth?
Wow. So let me know your one-word reaction. Andre James. We actually had our Giants host today asking us about Andre James, which is funny. Andre James signing with the Los Angeles Chargers. What is your one-word reaction to that move? I see who cares. I see GG, dude is cheeks, yummy, all words. And I see my guy Chase Sr. right here. Wouldn't even trade George Pickens for a 7th-round pick. Chase Sr. Can't believe it. The San Diego Superchargers. Cheeks, good. He's not worth keeping. I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen the contract. I gotta check out social media, I guess, and see what's the deal. Andre James signing with the Chargers. I wonder how big of a deal, because, I mean, if it's a decent contract, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't. It could be good depth for them. That's all I'm saying. Maybe I just got to search Andre James. It's not showing up for me. Andre James, if you're just now joining us, former Raider Andre James just signed with the Chargers. Mitch went off to go make a quick video around it. No details yet on the contract. No details yet on the contract. Interesting. 5-hour drive from Las Vegas. Mitch said he just bought a house in Las Vegas, so he wanted to, I guess, keep it close there on the West Coast. Very interesting. One word, sacks. I mean, I don't think Andre James was that. They released him because they had JPJ at the center spot. But in terms of pass blocking, 26 rated in the NFL by PFF. Let's see. His blocking grades last year. He had a 65.4 pass block, 50.2 run block. Arguably his worst year with the Raiders, right? Since he started in 2021. Since he got starting snaps. In 2023, posted really good numbers, 71.2 pass blocking, 75 run blocking, 74.6 overall. He was good in 2023. Wilkins going to eat. Yeah, and I got to look at the Chargers depth chart too of where he slots in for them, because they have Mekhi Becton at right guard. They re-signed Bradley Bozeman. They have Rashawn Slater, Joe Alt, Zion Johnson. Yeah, so he'd be a backup. He's going to be a backup for the Chargers. Or I guess they want to have a competition between Bradley Bozeman and Andre James for the center spot. That Chargers offensive line, though, they're getting a lot of depth. They got Mekhi Becton at right guard. They have their 2 tackles. Interesting stuff there. Very interesting stuff. As a quick reminder, Mitch left to go make a quick short around the Andre James news. Can we get to 500 likes before he gets back? We got over 930 people watching, a little under 400 likes. If you haven't already, hit that like button. Yeah, back home to UCLA. He's a West Coast guy, so he stays on the West Coast. That seemed to be something important to him. I thought he could have started for a couple teams, honestly. And maybe he has a chance to start with the Chargers if he can beat out Bradley Bozeman in camp. I thought the Jacksonville Jaguars might be a chance for him. I thought the New York Giants. But both those teams on the East Coast, and it sounded like he wanted to stay on the West Coast. Maybe the Chargers the best chance for him to stay on this side of the country and get a chance to start. Get those like numbers up. Wilkins versus James equals sacks. Yeah, I mean, definitely Christian Wilkins. I think, even, Christian Wilkins or, why can't I think of him? Or Adam Butler both beat him pretty well. Ryan Decker. Hey, Mitch, do you remember when Binghamton University made March Madness for the first time and had to play Duke for their first game? Binghamton got destroyed. Yeah. Interesting. Jenkins owes him. Very interesting. Very interesting. As soon as Mitch gets back, we're going to run the next races for our Raiders March Madness, which are going to be Ray Aguirre, Roger Braun, and Rebel Montana against Richard Kelly. So those are going to be the next races here for our Raiders Report March Madness. Interesting stuff. Andre James leaving the Las Vegas Raiders to go play in LA. We got the cheat code on James. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see because, like I said, I'm really interested to see what the contract is. I'm really interested to see how much he gets. It can't be worth that much, right? I don't think it's more than 1 or 2 years, 5-10 mil. I don't know. For the Chargers, I like the move. I know that's not what y'all want to hear as Raider fans. But as a depth guy, a cheap, if we're talking about at this point in free agency, a cheap center, I would say he's a borderline starter, A borderline starter. And for on the cheap, if you're getting somebody, I don't hate that move, to be honest. Omarion goes to Denver or Pittsburgh. No way he's there in the second. You think Omarion Hampton is a first-round pick? Interesting. I've seen people talk about him. I've also seen people talk about Travion Henderson as a late first-round pick, the late 20s possibly getting taken as one of those last first-round picks. Very interesting. I don't know. Let me know, though. Who would you want the Raiders to draft at pick 6? Mitch just gave his top 10 options for the Raiders at pick 6. Let me know who you would select at pick 6. I like Tet McMillan, too. I like Tet McMillan at 6'2". Ant2 Raw says, bro sounds smarter with his mouth shut. Oh, well, looks like you got little keyboard fingers there. Wouldn't say that to my face probably, but Ant2 Raw, have fun in your grandma's basement. Mimbu or Jeanty. Mimbu. Armin Mimbu. Armin Mimbu's not the sexy pick, but I think he would be the smartest pick for the Raiders at pick 6. Solidify that offensive line in front of Geno Smith. I mean, if you're able to trade back a couple spots and get Mimbu, that would be amazing. Hampton over Jeanty. And see, I'm in the crowd of, I think Jeanty's really good. But at 6? I think that's a little too rich for me. Jeanty at 6. With how many good, and I get taking Ted McMillan at 6, even though I think, him and Jeanty arguably are around the same level of prospect for their certain positions. There's just so many good running backs in this draft. It would be a tough move for me to say I'm going running back at pick 6 when you have, like we've talked about, Amarian Hampton, Travion Henderson. If you're able to trade back and get multiple, a second or third round pick, multiple picks in those, middle rounds, and you're able to get a Amarian Hampton or a Travion Henderson, Caleb Johnson, all those guys are really, really good for the running back spot. And the other thing that you don't really think about, and it's kind of like a secondary thought when you're taking guys in the first round, is those guys get first round contracts, right? If you take Jeanty at 6, you're paying a running back a lot of money on that first round deal, where if you take a, running back in the second round, that contract at the running back spot is going to be a lot less. I know the Raiders aren't worried about money at this point. They came into the offseason top 5 in the league in terms of cap space. Just something you have to consider. Mitchell Renz is back. What did you think about the move of the Chargers signing Andre James?
I'm not going to lie. I'm a little bit surprised by it, and I only say that because I don't think he obviously struggled last season. He's not really a really powerful blocker, and to me, I think Harbaugh kind of runs like that power, like running style. I do know that James was not in the best shape last season, and I was saying it earlier because I was talking to Marsh about it. But it's just like when life happens, right? When you get married and you get a house, you get a paycheck, like you might not be as in good of shape as what you were the year before that. And I think that's one of the things that we kind of saw from Andre James happen to him a little bit. Got his act together at the end of the season, but I'll be real, like I don't have any type of feeling about it because Andre James doesn't scare me, right? Like there's never going to be a point next season where I go, oh man, Andre James is the center of the Chargers. Like that's going to be a problem. I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Toya said casual, other running backs can't squat 600 pounds. I'm not saying Jeanty's not good. I'm also just saying, one, if you're basing solely on who you're taking at running back by
how much they squat,
you don't know ball. You're probably a very casual who just looked at the top Heisman odds and said, "Oh,
if that's the case,
guy."
Then you should take we should have gave A.J. Dillon $30 million.
Yeah, I mean, dude, A.J. Dillon can squat 600, bro. Take it. The other thing though is with that, and you mentioned it in the segment, and I've thought about it a couple times, but after you said it, it kind of popped back in my head. Jeanty has been a workhorse at Boise State.
Workhorse.
He has a lot of miles. Yep. He has a lot of miles on those tires. That's something you have to consider with taking a running back, because how many times do we see running backs, they're good in this league for 4 or 5 years and then they just flame out? Like Todd Gurley.
I was literally just going to say, the only thing though, Gurley had knee injuries.
Yeah.
Like he had a lot of knee issues. The one good part about Jeanty, and when I say one good part, there are certain running backs that just are built a little bit different. And when you watch Jeanty run, the one reason why I'm not as concerned about the wear and tear on him is because when somebody runs into him, his ability to absorb the contact because he is so low to the ground, and he gets hit, he's able to keep his balance, he's able to keep that foot like in the dirt, get north and south, and he's able to keep it going. And I also think like with the NFL in today's day and age, again, some players are getting bigger, there's a lot more speed involved.
You know who could squat a lot?
I think that he could have an NFL career like King Henry just from the simple fact of how big he is. And I get it. Henry's like this, but Jeanty's lower half is legit.
You know who could squat a lot?
Who?
Zamir White.
Actually, I don't know if that's true. I think all Zamir did in the offseason was just do curls. Because the only workout videos I ever saw Zamir do is him riding a horse and doing curls. And dude could do some curls.
Is riding a horse, is that
exercise?
a workout?
Oh my God, yeah. Really? Bro, I'm telling you this right now. If you rode a horse for an hour, you would be exhausted. It's a leg workout. Now, it depends what kind of horse you have. If you have a horse that listens really well, then it's really just a leg workout. If you have a horse that doesn't listen really well, your arms are going to be gassed. But dude, it is a workout to ride a horse. Yeah, it's wild.
Save a horse.
Ride a cowboy. All right, let's go to the final games here in our Las Vegas region here on the Raiders Report. Reminder, these are going to be the games, races that we do here on today's show. We got Ray Aguirre up against Roger Braun. Then it's going to be Rebel Montana up against Richard Kelly. One more segment to do, and then we're going to round out this bad boy with Jason Gutierrez, Patrick Roche, Yoda Jenkins, Francisco Ramirez. So we got Roger Braun up against Ray Aguirre. 40 seconds on the clock. 20 minutes first half, 20 minutes second half. Essentially is how we did it. 3, 2, 1. Let's get it going. All right, so Roger had the early lead. Already, though, we've seen a lead change. At the end of quarter number 1, Ray Aguirre does have the lead. And Ray Aguirre is starting to extend that lead. Come on, Ray. Come on, Roger. Halftime, Aguirre's got a lead by 10 points. Though, Mr. Braun is starting to get this one close. We're about halfway through the third quarter. Braun takes the lead. Fourth quarter action. This is all Roger Braun. Is Ray Aguirre going to have enough in the tank? This is going to be really close. I don't know. Roger Braun!
That one was much better.
40 seconds is a million times better. It's a million times better. Roger Braun, congratulations. You're moving ahead to the round of 32. Ray, best of luck to you next season, my man. All right, 40 seconds is where it's at.
Basketball.
40 seconds is where it's at. Because I'm about to dunk it.
All right.
The 11th seed takes down the 6th seed.
And now, I hope he's still in I think he's still in the chat.
Rebel, are you here?
Rebel Montana.
I'll say, if Rebel's not here, we might have to go to a different race.
Nah, we got to do it in order.
I know.
Or else I'll be messed up. And
All
then
right,
everything
fair.
will get messed up.
Rebel, you better be here, bro.
He was here. I swear
He was here earlier. He was here earlier. All right, so we got Rebel Montana up against Richard Kelly.
Oh, he's here.
Here we go.
Rebel, here we go.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Let's run it. All right, Richard Kelly gets out to a lead. Rebel Montana is right in this one, though. Montana down after the first quarter. I'll tell you what, this is neck and neck. They're not moving. Richard Kelly's probably got a little bit of a lead now, probably about 4 points, 5-point lead. 4 or 5-point lead here at halftime by Richard Kelly, the 14th seed.
He's led the whole
way. Is Kelly going to have enough to take down Rebel? Rebel starting to fall behind here. Rebel down 10 points in the fourth quarter. Is Richard Kelly going to have enough? Is Rebel going to have enough? It's coming down. And it's going to be Richard
Kelly.
Kelly with the dub. Rebel. My heart breaks.
That's the first one where the person led the entire time.
Yep. I will say I like this 42nd one now. It's totally different. Rebel, my man, I'm sorry, dude. When you have a lead for 3 quarters, you can't expect to get it back. Ah, dang it.
Yeah.
So that means we got 2 races left for today.
That was tough.
That one's tough. Now, again, I always feel bad rooting for certain people, but Rebel's a real one.
Wait, did I? Oh, wait.
Dang. GG 2-0. GG. Gotta go 2-0. I don't know what that means.
Here we go.
James now returns to LA. where he played college football at UCLA. Richard Kelly, Roger Braun in the round of 32, which means the final races today. Jason Gutierrez up against Patrick Roche. Yoda Jenkins up against Francisco Ramirez. That'll be after the next segment that we do here on today's show. And the next segment that we're about to get into is going to be some rumors around Ashton Jeanty. I don't know if you all have seen this. Everybody thinks that the Raiders are drafting Jeanty. I'm going to tell you why I think that it could ultimately end up happening. But again, for those that just watched our Draft Targets at 6 video.
Not going to be contentious at all. People won't be mad at our take with Ashton Jeanty whatsoever.
With what? Him being the 5th player that I want the Raiders to draft?
I mean,
again, it's not. If you told me right now the Raiders upgraded their offensive line, he might be number 1, right? Like, it's not that I don't like Jeanty. It's I like the Raiders, and I care more about the Raiders than a certain player.
We do have some Super Chats to roll through really quick before this last segment.
Let's do it. Mark my words, Geno is going to be top 7 quarterback on paper this season. I fully believe that. I mean, I already think that Geno is 14, and I think that he has a chance to be a top 10. And I got some cool stats that are going to be coming up here, which, oh, you know what that reminds me of? You know what stats? What am I thinking? Oh, no. I got a cool Geno stat coming up here in just a second, which, if you want the Raiders to have a good offensive line, and if you want the Raiders to have a good running game, I think you're going to like something. Caleb, Pickens running a muck in Las Vegas. Trouble. And I'll say this, right? Pete Carroll was able to make DK Metcalf work, and a lot of people thought DK was a head case. That's why he slid down in the draft. At the exact same time, though, I just don't know how you can be a football team that preaches everything that they've preached this offseason and then go get George Pickens. Like, that just doesn't align to me. Like, if you're going to have a plan, let's stick to the plan. George Pickens and everything you've done is the exact opposite of what the plan would be. What up, Nick? For everyone pooping on Jeanty, just remember Penn State's only defense was stop Jeanty, and he still ran for over 100 yards that game. Put some respect on his name. I mean, I think Jeanty is the best running back in the league, best running back in college football, that is. And I think right now, if you were to draft Jeanty, he'd be a top 10 running back in the NFL right now. I'm a Penn State guy. I watched that game very closely, and there's like putting 8 in the box is a term. Penn State was essentially putting 10 in a box, and they were saying the only way you're beating us is if you throw it down the field, which, again, Jeanty's really, really talented. I know that, but I think when you watch that Penn State game, that's the importance of having all the pieces around you, because when you don't, you have a great running back look like a normal running back. What up, Nab? Stop with running back in round 1. That's just crazy. Lots of running backs later. The talk of Jeanty against his division, a stud, is BS. Against good defense, not so much. I don't agree with this. And again, like, football is a team sport. It wasn't Ashton Jeanty up against Penn State. It was the Boise State Broncos, who were greatly overmatched, up against the Penn State Nittany Lions, who have a legit defense. And that kind of leans into exactly what Penn State's defense is. They're a physical defense. They're going out there to stop the run. That's Big Ten football. So I think if you would have put Jeanty on I'm trying to think of a better. You give Jeanty a good quarterback that can actually beat teams down the field consistently, a good defense like Penn State, and they weren't able to stack the box, he would have looked like Ashton Jeanty. I mean, he would have. He's that good. What up, Renee? Mitch, Vegas, but Chuck Norris said no Cox for Vegas. Mm-hmm. No Cox in Vegas, though Cox is a sponsor.
Is this?
This is Raider Ron. F. Pickens, FKC. First choice is Membu in the first. Second choice is Jade in the draft from Raider Ron. All right, like, I don't mind these ideas, and I do think that, like, if you were to ask me what is a sleeper pick for the Raiders at number 6, I think it's Armin Membu, and I do think Jade Barron are the 2 sleeper picks for the Raiders, but I also think that those are guys that you might be able to get at 10, might be able to get at 9, might be able to get in the teens, and that's why I want the Raiders to trade back ultimately the most in this year's class. Ron ain't wrong from David Zahn. When you got Zahn and Ron thinking the same, that can be a scary thing at times. All right, y'all, coming up here, let's talk about Ashton Jeanty. I got some good stats on him. A lot of conversation around Jeanty coming to the Raiders, so I wanted to be able to give y'all my 2 cents on my thoughts of the Boise State running back joining the silver and black. And if they do end up doing it, why I think that pick ultimately didn't end up happening. You ready, my man? Y'all ready to get this thing going? Coming up, let's talk about Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty, running back from Boise State, has been mocked to the Las Vegas Raiders more than any player I've seen this offseason. Hell, I don't know if I've been doing this show for a long time, if there's ever been a player that has been mocked to a team like the Raiders more than Ashton Jeanty. So coming up here, I'm going to get into the latest rumors around Jeanty going to the Raiders. I'm going to break down a mock draft from Mel Kiper, Daniel Jeremiah, and then I'm going to tell all of y'all why I could see the Raiders end up picking Jeanty at number 6. So the order of today's show is this: Mel Kiper mock with Jeanty, Daniel Jeremiah mock with Jeanty, and then why I think that the silver and black could ultimately go out and get the Boise State running back. If you're somebody that goes, Mitch, I want this guy right here in silver and black, hit that like button. Me sitting up here on this show, Jeanty wouldn't be my pick at number 6. That doesn't mean I wouldn't be fired up about it. He is the best running back in this year's class. He is exactly, I think, what Pete Carroll's old school defense or old school offenses look like. You put him in a Chip Kelly offense, it's not something that we've really seen before. But man, oh man, I do think it would be fun. So the reason why I'm talking about this is because anytime a mock draft goes out, I feel like I see Ashton Jeanty. And the fact that Mel Kiper's mock draft ended up starting like this, where Cam Ward, Abdul Carter, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, Mason Graham all go off the board, then it ended up being Jeanty there at the pick at number 6. I do think that you're starting to see a certain consensus, and maybe these guys are hearing something that, I'm just simply not. I know the Raiders like Jeanty, but if you ask a lot of NFL analysts out there, it's almost like Jeanty's already a Raider. Heck, this is why Mel Kiper ended up taking Jeanty to the Raiders at number 6. Coach Pete Carroll wasn't waiting until the draft to find his quarterback for 2025. After Las Vegas had the number 13 pick last year and missed on all 6 of the first-round QBs, the team went out and traded for Geno Smith before free agency kicked off. Carroll obviously has a history with Smith from their time together in Seattle and knows how to maximize him. But Carroll's teams also have leaned heavily on the run in the past. So I'm giving the Raiders the best player still on my board in Jeanty at pick number 4. I think the way that Mel says that is the biggest reason why Jeanty is being mocked to the Raiders. It's not like the Raiders know for a fact that they're going to take Jeanty, or all these NFL analysts are sitting here going, oh, well, we know something that nobody else knows. To me, I think what they're doing is looking at what the Raiders did last season. They went best player available. They took Brock Bowers at 13, despite it not being maybe a biggest need for the Raiders. Now what teams are doing, they're looking at the Raiders, they're looking at needs, and they're going, running back is a clear need. And Ashton Jeanty is probably the best player available according to a lot of draft boards out there. So because of that, that's why I think that we're continuously seeing Jeanty being mocked to the Raiders by ESPN, NFL.com, PFF. It doesn't matter. Jeanty is continuously being mocked to the Las Vegas Raiders. My job here is to be able to paint a picture of how I think it could happen. Let's keep it rolling, though, why Mel ended up taking Jeanty at number 6. Elusiveness, speed, physicality, vision. With the ball in his hands, Jeanty really has it all, rushing for 2,600 yards and 29 touchdowns this last season. Plus, he has some pass-catching upside with 66 catches over the past 2 campaigns. The Raiders were last in rushing last season, averaging 3.6 yards per carry and 79.8 per game. Jeanty would change everything there and create a solid offensive nucleus with Smith, Jacoby Myers, and Brock Bowers. So let me know down below, is Ashton Jeanty a top 10 NFL running back right now? Because in my mind, if you don't think Jeanty is a top 10 running back in the NFL right now, he has no business being taken at pick number 6. Because the running back spot to me is a position that can succeed when everything else looks good. Think of it as, look at what Saquon Barkley looked like on the Giants compared to what Saquon Barkley looked like on the Eagles. I want the Saquon Barkley on the Eagles. I don't want Saquon on the Giants. My fear is if we don't have a talented team around Jeanty, he looks like Barkley on the Giants and not Barkley on the Philadelphia Eagles. So is Jeanty a top 10 back right now? Let me know, yes or no. I do think that Jeanty is a top 10 running back in the NFL right now. Hell, there's some people out there that think he might be top 6, top 5. They might be pushing a little bit because he can't catch the football, but his ability to do everything really, really well, I think would be a really fun matchup with somebody like Chip Kelly. Like the fact that Kelly made Quinshon Judkins look the way that he did, and then you have somebody like Jeanty who can bounce off of wimpy tacklers, can take it the distance, can really punish runners. He reminds me, honestly, of a Marshawn Lynch that's got legit home run speed. And we know how successful Marshawn Lynch was with somebody like Pete Carroll. I'm not saying that their game is the exact same. I just know that their running style, their physicality, I'm trying to absolutely run through your face, and then I'm also going to laugh at you while I'm running by you type of mentality. That's what Ashton Jeanty brings to the table every time he touches the football. So Mel had Jeanty going to the Raiders. Daniel Jeremiah, guess what? He also had the Raiders taking Jeanty. And when these two guys end up thinking the exact same way, a lot of rumors start rolling, which is why I'm sitting up here and I'm talking about it. I'll tell you what the Daniel Jeremiah mock draft looked like and why Jeremiah had Jeanty going to the Raiders in a moment. Before I do, though, Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, is here, and this is one of my favorite times to get started. I love football season, and I love season long for the Raiders. But March Madness, a little college basketball, are you kidding me right now? This is one of the most electric times of the year. And why not make it even more electric with Prize Picks? Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this basketball season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. If you are planning on watching any games in the month of March, which I cannot wait for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I can already tell you what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be watching college basketball with my fiance, Alex, and I'm going to be watching some college basketball with my dog, Chuck. The fact that I have Alex interested in Prize Picks tells me I'm doing the right things because, as a man, I want to be able to sit down and watch a game for 2 hours. The fact that I can sit down and watch a game for 2 hours with my significant other and she's also as interested in the game as I am because she has a chance to win some money is why I love Prize Picks, and I think y'all will too. So one more time, it's prizepicks.com/CLNS. Make sure that you use code CLNS. So here's Daniel Jeremiah's mock. It's literally like the exact same thing, minus Jalen Walker's going at 5 here instead of somebody like Mason Graham. So again, because of that being the scenario, I see why Jeanty ends up getting picked because I went back and I looked at Jeremiah's draft rankings, and I saw where he had a lot of these players ranked. But this is what Jeremiah had to say on Jeanty. The Raiders can take some pressure off of Geno Smith by adding Jeanty, who is one of the top 3 players in this year's draft. Here are Jeremiah's draft rankings. And because I said it earlier I can see the Raiders going best player available, I think a lot of people out there in the NFL world think that the Raiders are going to go best player available. So it doesn't shock me that Jeremiah has the Raiders taking the best player available on his board. The reason why I'm doing this show is because I am really trying to illustrate to people that I believe that NFL media consensus is just giving the Raiders the best player available, which oftentimes is Ashton Jeanty, instead of actually taking a player that they could take. I'm not saying that they're not going to take Jeanty, but thinking that it's a lock at number 6, I think you might be kidding yourself a little bit. So one of the things that I wanted to be able to do is I love doing this show, and I love being glass half full, right? We spent all season being glass half empty, and I'm done with that. So anytime I hear something as often as what I've heard it, my mind starts going, well, why would the Raiders do that? Why would the Raiders draft Ashton Jeanty at number 6? So I'm going to tell you why I think that could happen. But if you're a Raiders fan that always is looking for draft videos, if you're a Raiders fan that wants free Raiders analysis, if you're a Raiders fan that just likes to hang out and have a good time with a bunch of fans all the time, I promise you, we are the channel for you. We have been able to build a beautiful, beautiful community that I am very proud of that drops videos every single day, 100% free. If you want to go check out my latest Raiders mock draft, this video is going to be available to y'all down in the comments, down in the description of today's show. I make a fun trade. Go find out what that trade was. Also, I was able to get Teteroa McMillan. So here's why I think that the Raiders could go out and draft Ashton Jeanty. The first reason, and I've said it maybe 1,000 times already on this show, the Raiders I could see going with the best player available approach. It worked so well for them last season, and I get it, totally different regime, but because it worked so well for them last season, could they do it again this season? They took Brock Bowers, they took JPJ, they were the best players available on the board. Jeanty considered by many to be a top 5 prospect. Quite frankly, I don't know if I've seen a rankings list that doesn't have Jeanty as a top 5 overall prospect. And because the Raiders do have plenty of needs on offense and defense, who knows? Maybe Pete Carroll and John Spytek decide to go with the best player that is available on their board. Let's go to the next reason. It does fill a big need. We can't sit up here and say that Ashton Jeanty at running back doesn't fill a major need for this team. I know the Raiders went out and they signed Raheem Mostert. Mostert, though, is a home run hitter, cheap contract, and when he's healthy, that's when he's at his best. You know who would be a great running back to keep Mostert healthy? Ashton Jeanty. I don't know what type of run that Mostert would get. He does have a connection with somebody like Chip Kelly, who was with him, again, 2015, 2016. But Jeanty is a dog, and he would really help this running game get going that struggled last season. I mean, the Raiders rushed for 1,357 yards last year. That is 204 less than the next closest team. The Raiders, 3.6 yards per carry. The only other team that didn't average 4 yards per carry was the Los Angeles Rams. Also, on top of all that, they put the ball on the ground 10 times. 10 times. That was 28th in the NFL. You also ran for 78 first downs. That was also dead last. If you want to be a team that moves the chains, you got to be able to move the chains with the running game. It's only going to help out Geno Smith. Let's go to the next reason why I could see it happening. The Raiders did end up meeting with Jeanty at the NFL Combine. The Raiders, to my knowledge, had only 3 formal meetings with running backs at the Combine, according to the Chat Sports team. Jeanty was one of them. The other 2, Trevian Henderson, Quinshaw Junkins. Both running backs played with Chip Kelly this past season. And I do wonder if the Raiders' initial thought process was, we take Jeanty in round 1, these are 2 running backs that we could target in round 3. That ain't happening anymore. Quinshaw Junkins and Trevian Henderson are both going to go in the top 50. So if you're the Raiders, you're going, do I take Jeanty at 6 or do I take one of those other running backs at 37? That should be the thought process right now. Jeanty, and this might be the number one reason why you would do it, he does help out Geno Smith. And when I went back and I watched Geno film, one of the things that I noticed was how much better he was when he actually had a running game going. And here's a crazy stat, because to me, I don't want to look at just touchdowns, interceptions, passing yards. We traded for Geno Smith for one reason, to win frickin' football games, okay? And last year, and throughout the last 3 years for Seattle, when Geno Smith in a game, and that team had a 4.0 yards per carry, which that is still well below average in the NFL. But when the Seahawks averaged 4 yards per carry last season, the Seahawks went 7-3. In 2023, they went 6-3. In 2022, they went 8-4. So I'm sitting up here telling you, if you can be 4.0 yards per carry, which Ashton Jeanty's going to get 4 yards a clip in the NFL, that was 21-10 overall. I know Geno's got some limitations. I see him on tape. But when Geno's at his best is when the Raiders are going to be a complete team. And Jeanty helps you be a complete team. The final reason is Brennan Carroll, Pete Carroll's son. And if you don't think that Pete wants to make his kid look a little bit better, I think that you're fooling yourself there a little bit. I know Pete's got a job to do, but Pete's son is also in charge of running the football on offense. He is the run game coordinator, which Chip's going to call plays. Chip's going to be the big sayer. But at the exact same time, that's going to be how other teams evaluate Brennan Carroll. Brennan is also the offensive line coach. He was also the run game coordinator from 2015 to 2020 in Seattle. That could be one of those just a little bit of a cherry on top of going, well, I could take Teteroa McMillan, or I could go Ashton Jeanty. If I go with Jeanty, I'm going to make my son look a lot better. Where if I go McMillan, he might not look as good. That might not be a reason. I'll be real. It shouldn't be an actual conversation. But I know Pete Carroll obviously loves his son. And because of that, maybe that's why the Raiders end up drafting Jeanty. So again, I threw out a bunch of different ideas there. Ultimately, if you want the Raiders to have a legit running game, and if you want them to be a smash mouth type of team that also has that ability to hit a home run, Jeanty could be that guy. I think he'd be a great fit in a Chip Kelly offense, but I also think Jeanty would be great in almost any offense he'd be on, but you got to make sure you got an offensive line. I love Jeanty. Top running back on the board, but I think the reason why he's being mocked to the Raiders is because he's the best player available, and that's the strategy that a lot of people see the Raiders doing this season. So what is your confidence level in this new regime? Scale it from 1 to 10 for the NFL draft. I don't want to talk about free agency. I don't want to talk about the extensions they've already done. I'm talking it's draft night. What is your confidence level in John Spytek, in Pete Carroll, in this coaching staff? Because if you don't believe in them to get it done in the draft, you probably don't believe that they're going to be very good this season. I have a lot of confidence in Carroll and Spytek. I would probably put this at an 8. It's because they've done the draft super well. Like, Spytek and the Buccaneers have done a great job of finding talent, developing talent. Yeah. Seattle with Pete Carroll has done a great job of finding talent and developing talent. That's how good teams are made.
I agree. And I think when you look at what Spytek was able to help out, and I know a lot of people are thinking, oh, really, like, how big of an impact did Spytek have in Tampa Bay? I challenge you, go back and watch the videos when the Raiders first hired Spytek. We broke down what the Chargers got Andre James.
I know. Yes, Andre James is a Charger.
What the Buccaneers website had to say about John Spytek, what other people within that Buccaneers organization had to say about John Spytek, and everything that we saw, everything that we read said that Spytek was an integral part of their scouting and drafting process in Tampa Bay, which gives me a lot of hope for what he can help the Raiders do moving forward.
Yeah, Spytek was the reason why Tom Brady went down to Tampa Bay. And, you know, like, even if Spytek didn't have all these things, but I always said that the next Raiders head coach that I wanted somebody from a Sean McVay tree, because the Sean McVay tree has been able to, spit out a lot of really good coaches. Kevin O'Connell's another example of that. I do also think it's really important, though, for teams that have smart GMs or GMs that are really, get a lot of love throughout the NFL. And Jason, is it Lich? It's something like that. The GM for the Buccaneers is also one of those names that people go, all right, that guy's got it figured out. And the fact that Spytek had the opportunity to learn from that dude since, 2016? I mean, that's pretty flippin' solid, if you ask me. All right, y'all, so here's what we're going to do.
Let's get through. We have some super chats to roll through, and
then
we have
March
2
Madness.
more races to finish off today's show.
Bet. Crash, what up, fam? Did we start March Madness races? Yes, we did.
We did.
And
you're about
Gunny,
to see 2 more.
Gunny, I don't remember when you race exactly, but
he's not in the Las Vegas region.
Yeah, he's not in the Las Vegas region, but I don't even remember what seed you are.
I think he's a 3 seed.
3 seed? All right. Zohan, what's up, my brother? The Raider offensive line
is the main issue.
So we can't run block. We have no number 1 receiver, so they will stack the box. Picking a running back in the first round makes no sense. So unless something changes, Jeanty in round 1 is a mistake. And I can sit up here and I can agree with a lot of the things that you're saying, Zon. And I don't think anybody doesn't think that Jeanty is a great running back. If you're going to take a back at 6, he better be that dude. Where your chance of error, what's the right way to put it?
It also depends on the situation, and that's something that we've highlighted as well. Saquon Barkley, how many people in here, raise your hand, do you think Saquon Barkley is the best running back in the NFL right now? I do. Go back to 2023, 2022. Was he even the same level of running back with the Giants that he's been with the Philadelphia Eagles? No, because he's set up for success with the offensive line. Half of having the best running back in the league, I would say even more than that. I would say 75% of having the best running back in the league is your offensive line.
I mean, look at Josh Jacobs in 2023, right? And think about the Raiders' offense in 2023, where honestly, the Raiders' offensive line in 2022 was actually a lot better than what it was getting credit for. But then Jacobs goes to Green Bay and has a much better of a season. And Derrick Henry, another great example of down there in Tennessee, people are like, oh, this guy's lost a step or 2. He reminded everybody that, I didn't lose a step or 2.
Derrick Henry
you go out and you have
bad.
Huh?
Derrick Henry in 23 looked like he was about to be out of the league. Not out of the league, but looked like he was on the downturn.
When you're a physical runner, and I know Barkley can run by you, that's kind of like what Jeanty is. Jeanty doesn't have the speed that Barkley has, but I think he provides more pop and more feel than somebody like Barkley has. So, when you can get Jeanty running downhill and nobody's touched him for 3 or 4 yards, dude, he's going to beat the shit out of people. If he's going to make guys miss in the backfield, you're just not going to have a lot of success. So, That's why I sit up here and a lot of times I wonder, if the Raiders go out and they add a Will Campbell and Armin Membu. I don't think that Will Campbell and Armin Membu are better prospects than Jeanty, but I do think that a better overall Raiders team is if you added one of those guys on the offensive line, and then if you were able to get a Quinshawn, Trevion, Caleb Johnson. I mean, again, it's such a deep, and I mean such a deep running back class, where it's not deep at wide receiver.
And you
it's
look
not
what
deep at offensive
You look
line.
what the Raiders did from 2023 to 2024. Something that changed and something that really hurt, the running game, which a lot of people don't think about. Greg Van Roten was really good at guard for the Raiders that year that he started.
I think low-key, one of the biggest losses that the Raiders have had the past few years is losing out on Carmen Brasillo. Carmen Brasillo, everywhere he's gone, has proved that he's a great offensive line coach, and he's been able to do a lot of really, really solid things. But Zahn, I agree with you, dude. I really do.
Rebel, sorry for the loss earlier. He says, conserve energy, but execute late. Back-to-back one-and-outs. Good game.
Wait, really? Back-to-backs?
Back-to-back round of six. Maybe you need a new head coach.
True. I think that's it, Reb. I think you're gonna need a new head coach. Let's go to Derek. What up, Derek? Round 1 offensive line, round 2 DT, round 3 wide receiver and quarterback.
I just don't see the need for DT.
I don't see the need for DT either. And I know that there's some good defensive tackles again in this year's class, but if there's one area on that defense that I am confident in, it's that defensive line. And because of that, and because also you have to, we got to see what we got in Christian Wilkins. I'm still hopeful that Wilkins is going to be the player that we're paying $27 a year to, but we got to see what that is. You got Adam Butler, right? And the Raiders also view Adam Butler as a long-term plan. That's why they gave him 3 years. When you see a guy getting 3 years, they're tying him to Max Crosby. They're tying him to Pete Carroll. They value Adam Butler. Then also, it's a 1-year prove-it for Malcolm. And technically, Tyree Wilson's basically got 1 year left too, right? He's not going to get a 5th-year option if he struggles this season. So because of that, I see them really trying to get Tyree Wilson going. And that's why I don't see them drafting a defensive tackle anymore. And maybe they get a guy a little bit later on, but they also do really like John Ulalu, who, don't sleep on him, but another under-the-radar type of name.
All right, next up.
Here we go. Jason Gutierrez against Patrick Roche, and then Yoda Jenkins up against Francisco. Do you think maybe we get a few shuffs? I think it's the only thing we haven't done. Perfect. I want to try to figure out ways where it's just a little bit different every time. 3, 2, 1. Tip is off, and Patrick Roche and Jason Gutierrez right now are really close, though. Goots has got a 2-point lead, got a 3-point lead, 5-point lead after the first quarter. I mean, so far, this has been all Gutierrez. A lot of ball control here.
Welcome to the Goots Show.
And we're going to go into halftime with Goots up about 5. Though, are they going to be able to hang on? Because we saw Rebel play a very similar game like this and was unable to come back. Fourth quarter, oh man, is Goots about to just blow this one out of the water? Wow. Oh man! Oh! What a comeback!
Patrick Roche!
A half-court heave!
At the
Bang! At the buzzer!
It's March, baby!
This is unbelievable!
This is March!
Dipsy-doo, Dunkaroo! This is awesome, baby! With a capital A!
Oh my gosh!
Super Atlantic sensational! Patrick Roche, he's a diaper dandy, baby! You know, who does a great Dickie B? I was listening to Smitty last night, our Warriors guy. There was actually at a time, I was listening to Rolly and Smitty. Shout out to them. They crushed it in our March Madness coverage. The amount of times that both of them would just break out into Dickie V, that's how they would talk. It was the only way they would talk the entire live show. It was unbelievable. That's all they did. Congratulations to Patrick Roche, which means we have one more game out of the Las Vegas region, and it features Yoda Jenkins. Yoda, are you here? Is Yoda Jenkins here? Patrick Roche, survive in advance.
Advance.
Oh, man.
Wow.
I'll
That
tell
was
you
a
what,
stunner.
that's going to... Uh-oh, he's here. Yoda's here. I'm not going to lie, Francisco Ramirez, you can get mad at me all you want. I'm rooting for Yoda. Though, Yoda, I went back and I looked. I don't know if you were here earlier when I was saying it. You were the 10 seed last season. So, shout out to you for moving up in the rankings, my man.
That was big.
Shout out to Yoda Jenkins for moving up in the rankings here.
I'll do a couple shuffs for you.
Nick said all the favorites got clapped, which is the exact reason, again, this is not rigged. This is 100% random. If you don't believe it, you can also do these. You ready?
Yeah, I mean, if it was up to me, which...
No disrespect. If it was up to me, Brandon's winning that first
yeah,
race.
he lost first round.
Like, you know.
But, hey, we put him in because you got to do it.
You got to put him in.
Spam the tunas down below. Like I said, that's just how you know it's not rigged. Because if it was up to me, Brandon would win the whole thing.
Yeah.
Lost in round
If it was
one.
up to Brandon, he also would have won the whole thing.
Yeah.
So he's pulling his strings. It looks like he used all of his strings on Husker Raider. To the great Jasper. 3, 2, 1. Here we go. All right, Francisco Ramirez. What do you think? It's like Wisconsin against Iowa.
Yeah, this is a good
Just
matchup.
over and over and over again. Dude, this one's close.
Dude, they are neck and neck.
I mean, right now I would say Yoda's got a 1-point lead, got a 2-point lead, 3-point lead going into half. I don't know if we've seen a race this close. I'm telling you what, Francisco Ramirez is giving Yoda Jenkins a run for his money. Fourth quarter time here. Somebody's got to make a move. Somebody's got to make a move. And it's going to be Francisco Ramirez.
Wow.
Wow. All the upsets in the Las Vegas region.
Hey, the house always wins.
Dude, look at Yoda. Yoda put... Oh, man. Yoda, thanks for being a good sport, dude. I'll tell you what, the Las Vegas region is upset central.
It did not disappoint.
It was upset central. Wow.
Woo!
All right, so here's what I want to do. I want to roll through the bracket one more time here. I want to go through, show you all the Las Vegas games, and then I also want to show y'all what the games that we're going to feature on the next time we go live. So, Brent Wilson, a.k.a. Annette, going to be taking on Steven Corbill, the 8 seed. The winner of that game will go on right now. The game of the tournament for the round of 32 for me, Philip Bogert up against Nathan Wolf. Then the bottom, I'll tell you what, this is
All upset city.
all upsets here. The 11 seed up against the 14 seed, Roger Braun against Richard Kelly, and then Patrick Roche up against Francisco Ramirez. Let's roll, though, one more time through our Raiders Report March Madness bracket. We got Patrick B. up against Troy Maldonado. These are all going to be taking place on Thursday when we go live. We're going to be going live again at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Some good matchups there. Gunny, you got a big matchup up against Keelan O'Leary, which that's going to be a fun one. And Misty Williamson up against Tony Knutson. A lot of good games there. Scott and Renee, Ryan Campbell.
Which that's K-Rock.
K-Rock is...
I'll say this. If you beat Ryan Campbell, I'll change it to K-Rock. We'll make the move.
Sounds good. Raider Ron against Roberto Serrato in the Oakland region. One of the matchups I'm going to be looking at there, Randall Carter, Johnny B. Good, Rustin Long, Gilbert Moreno, a lot. Honestly, even Trent Hamada, Blaine Craig. That's a lot of duck racers in that one. Then, 6-11, you got David Vergara up against Austin Gomez. David Rubio, Buck Kirk. Jamari Murray has a lot of duck race experience. But then, at the very bottom there, Husker Raider, maybe one of the top twos in this bracket. Number 1 in the Brockton region, Lord Cameron Abbott, who was on today's show. Shout out to him. Joe Maldonado, Adrian Leon's going to be an interesting one. Darth up against Marcus. Anthony Green against Richard Magbull. And then to round it out, you got Mr. Raider Sancho against Raymond Sanchez. The mod, Ron Raspberry. Mo Schaub against Eric Mitchell. And then maybe the top number 2 seed, 93 Navman. That is the Raiders Report. March Madness bracket. We will continue those games on Thursday. Now, let's roll through. Let's answer some super chats. And then once all the supers are gone, Chuggs and I are going to hop on out of here. We should trade back no further than 11 and still get Jeanty plus additional compensation, because if we trade back past 11, Cowboys will get him. You say that, and I'll tell you this right now. I think the Cowboys are a sneaky team to take Shedeur. Like, I know the way Jerry Jones thinks, and he cares about money. And there's a part of me that wonders, is this Jerry's plan all along to draft Shedeur? Schottenheimer's going to be a shit show. You can move on from Dak then, and then just bring in Dion. Like,
I will say, in saying that as well, there are some sneaky teams that could take Shedeur past you. The Jets at 7. They got Justin Fields. That was one of your things of, if you get Justin Fields, you'd think you'd want
a great
Ashton Jeanty a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I literally said the way that I would be absolutely okay with taking Jeanty at number 6 is if Justin Fields is the quarterback.
The Bears, all they did in the offseason was spin on the O-line. They have Caleb Williams. They have DJ Moore on the outside already as a wide receiver 1. Maybe they go, do we draft a Jeanty at number 10? The 49ers, they have Christian McCaffrey, but everybody's been telling us, which I don't really buy it until I see it, everybody's been saying there's the trade rumors around Christian McCaffrey. You know who's a great replacement for the best running back in the league? Maybe the best running back prospect in the league at 11 with the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, you know about the Cowboys. Seems like the Dolphins at 13. They always take running back even though they don't need one. They love the speedy guys, which maybe they go with one of the speedsters in round 2 or 3. But I could see multiple different teams trying to get Jeanty.
Yeah, and I legitimately think that there's so many different routes that teams could go. But I also do think that Jeanty could slide in this year's draft because the one position that is by far the deepest, it's running back. Every other position is not as deep as running back. So if you know that you can get value at that position, I do wonder if we see some running back slide a little bit. Let's go to Nick. What up, man? I don't agree with drafting Jeanty first round. I just don't like the hate he's getting. But I do think that they would want a running back. Scatterboo could be a good pickup in round 2 or round 3. I would rather the Raiders draft Jeanty than take Scatterboo in round 2 or 3. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I would want, if we're going to wait into round 3, like Trevion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins are not going to be there. Caleb Johnson's not going to be there. To me, the biggest reason why I want the Raiders to trade back is because I do think that this team wants to draft a running back, and they wanted to draft a running back by pick 68.
I feel like Jeanty has not been getting a lot of hate. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I haven't been seeing it as much. I feel like Jeanty hasn't been getting
Jeanty has not been getting hate. Jeanty was getting a little bit of hate earlier on this show.
If I told you a couple of years back that we'd be talking about the Raiders taking a running back at 6, you'd be calling me crazy because 3 years ago, people were saying, I don't think running backs go in the first round anymore. Everybody freaked out at the Lions.
Jonathan Taylor went 42.
Everybody freaked out at the Lions for taking Jahmyr Gibbs in round 1.
Yeah.
Everybody did, and he's been really good.
You know why he's been really good?
Good O-line.
Because that offensive line is unbelievable. What up, Jersey boy? T-Mac and Henderson in the first and second is a more effective way to use the picks than drafting Jeanty and having to take a wide receiver later who might not be a true number 1. I don't disagree with that statement at all. Though, I would actually argue that if the Raiders were to take an Ohio State running back in the second round, I actually think it'd be Quinshon Judkins over Trevion Henderson. And I only say that because the way that I believe Chip Kelly is going to use Raheem Mostert this year is the way that he used Henderson last season on Ohio State. They need somebody that they can rely upon a little bit more between the tackles. And Henderson, when I watched his tape, I was actually pretty disappointed in a lot of the stuff that I saw. He was really good at the back half of the season. Ohio State was in its bag. But I don't think he runs with as much vision as what you're looking for. His ability to catch the football, those
This is going to be a tough question. Chat, let me know. Would you rather take option A or option B? Type A if you want option A. Type B if you want option B. Option A is you take Ashton Jeanty at 6 and Emeka Egbuka with your next pick. Option B is you take T-Mac at 6 and Trevion Henderson with your next pick. Who would you rather have?
To be honest,
Option A, Jeanty and Egbuka. Option B, T-Mac and Trevion Henderson.
I take option A.
Option A?
I just don't think Emeka Egbuka is there at 37. Like to me, if
I
you
was going
want
to add
that,
another receiver, but it just depends.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
I was
Like,
going to
I
say
would almost say, like, I've seen Jaden Higgins going early. Like, to me, Ashton Jeanty, Jaden Higgins, or
but there's always
T-Mac and
if I told you last year Cooper DeJean was going to be a second-round pick, everybody had him in the first round.
sure. I would be shocked if Emeka Buka fell.
Me too.
Where, then again, like, we were talking about Luther Burden earlier today. Luther Burden now, at first we were like, oh, this guy's never going to get out of the top 15 picks. And now we're like, I don't even know if he's going to get drafted in round 1. Shit changes all the time. Jersey boy Greaser.
Kind of a split bag, though. I see
It is
some
a split
A's
bag.
and some B's.
I like it. I like, that's how you know you got a good question. When you get a split bag, that's how you know it's a good question. All right, let's go to Rebel, and I believe this is the final question on today's show. See stats on Jeanty when he faced the 3 legit teams versus unknown schools. Watch tape when he faced UNLV, stack the box, and he gets stopped. And I get it. I just think, like, you can't just look at when he played good teams, okay?
Also,
And it's an unfair thing to say because it's not Ashton Jeanty against UNLV. But when teams were able to stack the box, he just looked a lot more normal. And that's my fear with the Raiders. Maybe that's the point you're trying to make.
and that also puts it on of like the whole point of it's a team game. If your best player on offense is a running back and you don't have any other weapons that can complement that, which the Raiders, if you take Jeanty, that wouldn't be the case, I don't think. I mean, you need some help on the O-line, I think, to get the running game going, but you have Brock Bowers as a legit receiving threat. You have Jacoby Myers.
How many games do you think Boise State wins last season without Ashton Jeanty?
Oh, I think
500?
I think they go from being in the college football playoff to they're in a bowl game, like some random quick trip or whatever bowl, like the
Quick trip.
the Mayo Bowl or something like that.
But I agree where it's not too often you see a running back have that big of an impact on a team, and because everybody else around him is very average, where, I was talking about this the other day. Can anybody name, outside of Ashton Jeanty, the next Boise State player that gets drafted this year?
The only person I know is he's actually, never mind, he's not on the Boise State anymore. He's the quarterback for Arkansas. Taylor Green was the quarterback.
Think about this. Who's going to be the next Boise State player that gets drafted this year? I legitimately do not know that answer.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes where you got to just look at talent where, you get some of these guys like Penn State, Georgia, like multiple first-round picks. It does make a difference, especially in the ground game.
Yeah.
Especially in the ground game.
All right. I was going to say, make sure you're back on Thursday because we have more March Madness here on the Raiders Report. It's getting wild. We saw a lot of upsets today.
A lot of upsets. I'm excited to see how the next region ends up breaking down. We did have a lot of people tune in. I appreciate everyone that joined today's show. We're getting closer and closer to 190,000 subscribers. It's a pretty incredible thing. Actually, how close are we?
To what?
To 190. Do you have the graphic that shows 190? Because I know when I woke up this morning, we were like 50 away.
Oh, we are 32.
32 away, which means we'll probably hit that tomorrow.
Probably tonight.
Yeah, we might even hit it tonight.
Yeah,
I would imagine most of the people that are watching right now are subbed.
Nick, yeah, if you're not subbed already, go down and sub. Maybe we can hit 190 right now.
If we hit 190 right now, I'll do a beer bong. Which I can't believe I just said that because I don't know if you all could tell today. I did not eat anything, and I've been super dizzy doing this live show. I don't know what the hell's wrong with me. Maybe I won't do a beer bong. Don't hit subscribe. I actually don't want anything like that.
We just gained 3.
Ooh, we're gaining there. We're gaining there. Seriously, though, the next time you're going to see Jeremy Chuggs and I is going to be on Thursday. Now, obviously, if any breaking news happens, make sure you pull up. Make sure you get a little bit wet and wild.
Yeah, and I did want to mention there was one more super, Nick Sanchez, which, good point. He says if you have an NFL defense, only try to stop the run. That running back's not going to do well. That's kind of our point.
Yep. Nick, I agree. Also, if there is any breaking news, Chuggs and I are, let's just say this, we're getting really, really close to something that our bosses told us we wouldn't be able to do. So if there's some breaking news, I hope you guys pull up and show them that we were right, they were wrong, because I know this is a weird thing to say, but this is our job. This is how we provide for our families, and you show your boss they're wrong, who knows? Maybe it ends up in being a little bit of dinero for us and extra dinero for the Raiders Report. Peace out. Appreciate all y'all. I'll see you guys Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern time here on the Raiders Report.